Alright, how's it going? Switch over. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another stream with your boy Indian Abroad. Today we're going to be studying 3 subjects, aka 1 this dog, 2 this chimp, and 3 this here still life. I hope I don't see Krita come up, never mind RIP. Yeah, no, I had no time yesterday. I'm kind of stacked with things that I need to do throughout the day, so I considered opening up Photoshop right before stream, but then I was like, you know what, I gotta get work done, and I can't be getting comfortable on stream, so I'll get comfortable off stream. That's the idea. What has been the consideration? The consideration is YouTube. So there is a specific functionality that allows you to upload your repository to YouTube automatically, but I haven't looked into it to the point where it's been implemented yet. But I could, if there's a rising demand for the videos after the fact, then I can upload them. The thing is, at least lately with the deal stream, especially with the Bonnie deal streams and things like that, that isn't exactly the kind of video that I want to be uploading anyway, so it was sort of momentarily out of my mind. But right now, since we're getting back into the studies, it makes more sense. So we might be doing it more right now. So I'll look into it after today's stream. If you could drop me a message or something on the Discord, just to remind me, that'd be great. Let me just adjust things on my canvas, make sure everything's okay. There is a rising demand from me. Alright, I feel like that's a fair request to make. I will look into it. If anybody here has the Twitch to YouTube thing already working, do let me know. I'll spread the word out. I think Charlie has something similar to this. I don't exactly know how he does it. Maybe he downloads his entire VOD or something. But yeah, I could do that. Yeah, maybe. How's it going, Chill? Good to see you, buddy. It's really easy? Well, let me know then. We're not going to be dilly-dallying too much though. We're going to be drawing into the first study quite soon. I don't want to be wasting any time today, because we got to get a lot of work done. Let me just make sure that my timer is up and running, and right after that we will begin. I should have maybe gotten a coffee right before he started, but I've only drunk a coffee today and I've been trying to wean off. So let's not go crazy with it. Why don't we just get excited for the fact that we're going to be drawing all these beautiful fun pictures. Which one do you want to get, if you guys want to do this along with me by the way, which one do you want to do first? The grammar was absolutely dog shit in that sentence, Jesus. But the dog, the still life, or the chimp? I'm thinking the chimp, maybe. You could upload them as private videos and share the links in the Discord. That's true. You can clip it up in the Twitch editor, or just upload the entire VOD. No kidding. Isn't it just in the settings? Is it really? I should go explore that then, because I have not too much clue besides the old way of doing it, all those years ago. Got the day off, so going pretty well. How is your injury doing? Are you healing okay? Everything going alright in that respect? You just need to link your Twitch and YouTube account as well. Okay, then that is something that I can do after stream. I like the dog, and I want to do good. But we can start with the dog. I think it's a pretty good one to start. Very straightforward. Got not that much force perspective, just basic measurements. Of course, dogs can throw you for a loop, very possible. But this reference is not that difficult, I don't think. The major thing that I want to talk about here, your little issues, or our issues as a collective when it comes to drawing animals, specifically dogs from this particular view, is you really want to make sure that this whole situation is sorted. You want to get that triangle done. That's the most important measurement. Everything around it matters little and less, but this particular measurement of the eyes with respect to the nose, it might seem obvious right now, but a lot of things are obvious when it comes to art, but the way that we prioritize it in our head isn't always the most optimum for each and every reference. So it's good to reiterate, always reiterate. So the most important thing to get right in this particular study is to maintain this ratio, the triangle of the eyes and the nose, as well as the distances here and here. And everything else can be subject to change. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to completely ruin your read if you get a bit of a malfunction in measurement this way or that way. It's going to be fine. He'll be either a poofy boy or a skinny boy, but he'll still be a good boy because the measurements are proper. So that's the one thing that I'm going to be focusing on the most. Also, it might be useful for you guys to kind of draw this area out as well. It's a very common thing for me to do when I draw animals, especially dogs from this particular perspective. It's great to kind of indicate this strong little line in between, because you can do that Jonathan Hardesty style separation of light and dark, where you have that separation somewhere in the middle, and they can have that strong line running in between. And indeed, over here we have these very distinct shapes, not super distinct, but they are quite clear. Like you have this crazy dark that's running across the side of the dog. Like that's such a cool dark. You see that one large shape all of that could potentially be the same value and the piece would hold just fine. Even this, for example, we can put it in the same dark, and this could also be in the same dark. There is so much good simplification that can be done in this study. Like all of this can go into the same value, and the drawing would be completely fine. Of course, some thought could be given towards these little areas over there. We could maybe warm those up a little bit more if we have time. But if we get this right and we maintain the hierarchy, everything's going to be just fine for this particular study. So this is what the primary focus is going to be beyond those overall measurements. Of course, my focus as always for this study is going to be fur rendering. So I am going to be strongly paying attention to how I get this little fur texture working. So I have my own methods that I've been working on in terms of like whether I start with the texture, whether I start with the measurement, whether I start with the block-in, whether I finish with the edges, how much blur I use, how much dodge I use. These are the things that I'm kind of considering while I'm doing these. As well as the overall value differences, I want to keep a good mental repository of these. Because it's important to understand just how crazy the values can shift on surfaces when you render them, because metallic values, for example, can shift quite crazily, but cloth maybe not as crazily. And skin, not crazy at all, very gradual shifts. So right before we got on the stream, I did make a general assessment just by eye, and I think, well, I've painted fur before. What are the values going to be? And I was actually quite close, so that was kind of fun to see. Icing it a lot, seems to be recovering, but not there yet. Hopefully, hoping to lift this weekend, but I can't rush it. Aging sucks, you'll be fine. You're just hitting your prime. You're going to be completely fine. I need to develop simplification, especially to help with making emotes. Yeah, well, the simplification can just be this, right? So you can almost limit yourself with a number of values. So instead of painting this in 5, paint this in 3, or paint this in 2. Well, 2 is a bit harsh, but painting this in 3 is very reasonable. This is a prime study to paint in 3 values if you like. Okay, enough dilly-dallying. We need to get to painting because we have some work to do. I think my canvas is relatively okay. Let me get rid of these distractions for the time being. We'll set them to the side, and we can start going in just a second here. Make sure I have a comfortable seated position. I wouldn't want to put excessive strain on my trapezius. When I get back home, I might actually buy one of those fancy-ass arms for my giant tablet. Because while I love the size, this thing is really unwieldy on the desk that I have. But of course, this can be avoided with some mild modifications. Okay, I think I am alright. I think I'm good to go. Let's shift things up and then we can get started. Cool. Please get an Apple sticker with a 999 price tag. Could do. God bless Hyun though, because I would never be able to afford a tablet like this. I mean, I would never even ask for a tablet that was like $1,200. Like, that's ridiculous. So thank goodness they had an affordable tablet of this size, and that you guys are willing to sponsor it for me. Thank you for yeah, don't worry, I'll handle it right after stream. I don't want people to, I mean, if you want the content, who am I to deny it, right? I mean, I'm putting the time into it anyway, so I may as well just have it more permanent. Okay guys, this is going to be a 45-minute study. I will do it in color, but value is accepted, any medium is accepted, and if you'd like to get the particular references, make sure to join the Discord and get it from the appropriate channels. The channel is Study References Completed channel. That is where all of this is stored on Discord. Okay, so we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, let's go. How's it going, Anjavir? Good to see you. The first thing that we do here is we mildly correct this here background value. These subtle gradients are so important. They're so good to get, because we're gonna add that little bit of variance that you need in the background. Nobody likes a dismal, boring background. You like to have a little bit of variance in there whenever you can manage to squeeze it in. Let's also add a couple of notes over here. We can add some ideas of the subtle reddish, warmish glow right there. I'm putting that around a yellowish orange, something like that maybe. How do you look? You're okay, but a bit more red, a bit more saturation. So generally speaking, I really want to cut down on the amount that I make corrections. So I'll limit myself to at least maybe 1 or 2 at the most color corrections when I'm actually picking for color, because I don't want to be stuck. And honestly, it doesn't make all that much of a difference. This arbitrary background color doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be mildly evocative, and then beyond that, let's just be confident with what we're doing. Let's not overthink it when it doesn't need to be overthought, one of those words. Leaving, have a nice one. Thank you for stopping by, Rami. And hopefully get to catch the wall after the stream. But cheers, have a good one. I'm actually loving my tablet too. Nice. Jump in, Andrew, jump in, Abs. Paint this with me. Do it. I think Abs has a Canvas Pro as well, but the smaller version. Because, you know, Abs is just in general smaller than I am. But that's fine. He makes up for it with his scathing wit. I'm gonna cut this off a little bit and then we can defocus. I don't think that's true. Well, TwitchCon, right? Wait. Let's figure out the answer to that question. Alright, so... But I don't know, Abs. I think you're pretty witty. You don't need to sell yourself out. I think you should be confident with what you have. Okay, so do a couple of measurements real quick, because we want to get this overall gesture of the dog. I'm gonna try and do a human ref because I'm still butthurt from the last attempt. Well, we're doing this chimp, but chimps are like 90% human. Why don't you draw this guy as an old dude? I'm 188 centimeters. Well, I'm 189 when I'm lying down. Let's get the measurements done with this guy. I have a nice little soft pencil brush that I can start using for this, which is fun. Let's just sample a reference here. Chimp sounds good? Yeah, chimp is next up on the chopping block. Okay, let's just block this dog out, right? Because this doggo is just this cube. So let's start with these lines. We'll draw these long straight lines. And thankfully we have the boundary of our canvas to kind of guide us in telling us exactly what vertical is. Because my goodness, are human beings terrible at seeing vertical. And by human beings, I mean myself. Not the best when it comes to this idea, but hey, not the worst. Enough for me to be able to still manage regardless. So we block it out real easy like, because I'm not particularly concerned about all these crazy ideas of, oh, I want to draw a dog perfectly. What I'm really concerned about is simply getting that overall gesture reading in a manner that makes some amount of sense. So this is about the height of the ear. I think that's about the top of the nose. I bring that one more time down. I think I get my little bottom of the mouth. That's where I'll tentatively say that it is. Also, where these ears kind of meet, somewhere around there is where my snoot begins to start. So that's a plumb line right there. That's a plumb line correspondence. What a plumb line is, it's a vertical line that you draw throughout your piece just to coordinate different areas. And oftentimes you will find that it is also important to coordinate things in your piece far more than it is to get absolutely picture perfect measurements 1:1 from your canvas or from your reference. That is not what's really important. What's really important is that things coordinate with each other. Buying a Canvas Pro next month, that's good. Canvas Pros are good. I mean, the whole Huon brand is just fantastic. I am a fan. And people always, you know, kind of afraid for Wacom a little bit, but what can you do? They've been the forefront, at the forefront for a while now. What is that image, Abs? Describe it to me. Use your beautiful Britannica voice. Britannica? Britannia? Britain? English? Whatever it's called. There is a bit of a correlation right there. There's an angle. Usually when I see a rhythm, I try to replicate the rhythm. There's a rhythm over there near the eye and near the ear. So therefore I got that one. There's another one right here. That's kind of cool. You have this kind of idea right there. And then I want to just get a little bit of this information here. This line is almost central to both those lines. So both the lines of the ear, this line's about central. So the idea behind doing a lot of measurement, it's a very witty and hilarious response to your statement. Well, then you totally pwned me with that response. Let's just leave it at that. We have this little interior lines here. The idea is just to get a very basic geometric, very controllable version of my drawing, of my reference. That is the idea. OBS doesn't capture a Krita, seeing white screen. If you're using a Krita version, that's the latest one. The latest build does indeed have an issue. And I think I've actually answered this question for somebody else on the Krita subreddit, but the latest version of Krita is actually not easily detectable by OBS for some reason, so you might want to revert, because I had to use window capture and then I just stopped using it entirely. So I had to use display capture, so either use display capture or I guess revert your version. It's an unfortunate little circumstance, but it is what it is. It's about halfway up. The eye is going to be approximately over here. So I'm just painting with the order of coordination, trying to coordinate things. So for example, the ear is going to be between this line and that line. This is going to go right through the eye, which means the eye is going to be around here. Same thing over here. It's going to go through the eye. Means the eye is going to be roughly around here. I Found out that I'm better with my left hand than my right hand. That shows whoever it was that put the pen in my right hand demand I use the right hand. That's fine. You're gonna click it? I'm gonna keep posting it. That's just abuse of mod powers right there. That's abuse, just abs, and abuse is wrong. We are 6 minutes into the study, but it is well worth the idea to try and get good proportions at this stage, because we have indeed jumped the gun a little bit too quickly on dogs in the past, and we have been completely railed because of that idea, so we have to be careful. We have to remember past circumstance and learn from our mistakes. That's important. Right now over here, I can be very, very basic with the right hand side. I'm afforded this luxury because I'm painting this realistically, which means that I don't have to care too much about the information in the shadows. That is not my concern. So all I'm looking to try and do over here is to get a very basic, very strong separation of light and dark between the light and the shadows. I'm not doing this to kind of learn the structure of the dog. You can do that later. But I'm doing this specifically to try and get a good, effective painting out of this, which is the idea. So even further than that, I really want to hone in on this idea of separation of light and dark. So I'll have this little center line over here. I don't have to go too complicated with this. Again, the more simpler you keep it, the more easy it's going to be to control. So I see this line being over here in respect to the mall. So I'd say that's my separation right there. Of course, with respect to the eye, I'll make a few changes with my lines right there to make sure that my overall silhouette still reads. You added a command for it? Is this the day that I unmod you for abusing the command system? But yeah, that's the answer to your question, Faith. Hopefully that helped you out. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the solution directly, and I did end up reverting back to 1.7 personally, but hopefully you get a solution that's better than that, because you shouldn't have to revert. But I just did what I did, because I don't particularly... I mean, I like the new features, I think they're cool, but I don't need them to paint. And they didn't even seem all that more optimized to me, so it's perfectly fine. That's the end of my blocking phase. Maybe I want to place that nose before I do anything else. The nose at least is equidistant from this point, at least roughly equidistant, so let's put it down there. Right about there. And then I have my mouth point, which is right about there, the mouth point, little maw. And we're getting to get that little measurement that we're missing right there. Seems good enough to me. Okay, so I can draw out some shapes at this point to make my little job easier. Very possible. I think there's an excessive amount of plumb lines. The plumb lines actually shouldn't be drawn. It's supposed to be imaginary. Yet I've drawn them for the sake of clarity. But if I was doing this off stream maybe, or if I had a little bit more sense in my skull, I wouldn't have drawn them outright. But you know, it is what it is, and we live with the life that we forge for ourselves. That is simply the case. I gave Angie a shout out and made the command 100% worth it. Well, one of those things is important. My mom ruined the pen tab? What do you mean your mom ruined it? What are you talking about? What did she do to it? Okay, let's block this whole thing out. Now, I've made this mistake in the past, but I'm not going to make it again. Which is I want to start everything on this kind of neutral basis. So let's just start here. You know, what might be easier than trying to get perfect selection at this point is just to block it out generally. Let's just block it out like we're going to be painting this with charcoal. Other people use OBS. I'm shocked. A lot of people use OBS. I use OBS. Gonna get this general notion out of the way. Easy as. There's gonna be so much work done for the edges at this point that simply as a layering thing, I know for a fact that I'm not gonna be sticking with any of these things too severely, so I don't have to be precious with it at this point. I can just be a little bit more vague than usual. The idea behind this right now is to just get a vague and a neutral warm tone as a base for my dog. So let's get that neutral warm tone. It's going to be something like this. But I just want a separation, so when there is indeed a bleed through, I want it to bleed through to some value that makes sense in the dog. I don't want it to bleed through to blue, because it's going to kill my read. So I'll add a bunch of warm tones right now, just in the background, because I want it to bleed through to this value. When I say bleed through, what happens most of the time when you work with texture is the idea that when you do work with texture, and there are little breaks, you know, which creates the texture in itself, those breaks will kind of mislead the eye. If it breaks into a value that's brighter than it's supposed to be there, it'll really kill your read. So you gotta be careful about that. She has the heaviest hands when she colors things in. I don't know where my spares are, it's making the scratching sound. Try inside the pen holder. There you go, Abs knows what's up. Okay, so now that we have that neutralizing base color, let's just cover everything up with that, if you can. Okay, everything's nice and covered, and now we're ready to proceed to the next stage. Now, in this particular stage, we can start blocking things out in a manner that seems consistent with my image. So we want to be very, very basic at this point. We want to be very, very simple. and that's how we're going to proceed. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll get those darks out of the way, shall we? So let's get some nice little evocative darks. Let's not be precious with it. Again, get those nice little separation marks. So this whole area, all the way up to halfway near the eye, going a little bit here, going a little bit there. All of this is going to go into a large amount of shadow. So the shadow is going to be intensely warm and the light's going to be cool. So there's going to be intensely warm shadow. So what I'll do here is I'll put a value down initially, like that, and then I'll just burn a bit of an orange in there because I want to have a bit more warmness than my palette can currently provide. We can just leave that much as my first little mark, and already this is having a bunch of life breathed into it. Now, in the idea of simplification, I will not be choosing multiple different dark values over here. I will use the exact same dark value that I put right there, and I'll make some additional marks, some additional changes. Keep it nice and simple, just like this. So we'll add an additional mark. I'm doing this with selection tool, but it's probably, as Just Abs might say, it's probably quicker to just straight paint this as well. I'm probably wasting time by doing selection tool, but it makes me feel comfortable and in control. So sometimes that's what you gotta do. It's what you gotta do to make it in this world. I can add some additional darks. These ones I really like to straight paint. The value probably remains the same, but the actual color in itself probably changes to more of a cool as it goes higher. And that's perfectly fine. I have the liberty of going a bit more cooler at this stage, if I'd like to. But I don't. I want to go cooler right now because I want things to be simple. I don't want things to overcomplicate. Do you paint with your mouse? I do not. I paint with a beautiful, lovely tablet that my stream did afford for me. Why do people keep asking that, I wonder? Is it the clicking noises? I tend to click very harshly when I paint. That might be it. Or is it the selection tool? I will never know. You have to tell me. Get a bit of this erased right there. It's the clicking noise. That is my pen on top of my tablet. Okay, let's just make sure everything is nice and solid here. What pen sounds like that? This is a clicking noise from my mouse. But hey, what can you do? You hear what you hear. It'd be fun to draw with the mouse though. I would certainly like to try it. Okay, so we have that value as our dark value, and we want a bit of a brighter value for our lights. Let's put in that little first semblance of a blue here. So I'll start here, and that'll be my first guess. Am I happy with that? Maybe. I don't think I need all that much blue because it's a warm base. Maybe we'll start here with the desaturated idea. Seems a bit too desaturated though. So again, I will just make a couple of choices here. How is it so loud? I think I just apply it like that. I'm very heavy-handed. Let's do it like that. That value seems okay, but let's paint it in with a strong idea because I want that value to actually be there. We can't see the color palette you're working with? Yeah, because I'm using a window capture, and if you're using window capture, you can't show it. Would you like to see it? Doesn't make all that much difference. It does lag my computer severely though, if I try to capture this. Because I can pause this for you. I have this little view here. I have this view of my Krita window when I'm explaining things within Krita. But this view looks absolutely garbage, I feel like, for streaming. Because it's just way too much shit on the view, and you can't see stuff because I obscure so much with my brush selector and my color selector. Oh, I don't want to do that. But like I said, the color very seldom matters. We're painting realistically, so painting with the idea of realism. So the temperature matters. The color doesn't really matter. Okay, let's go back. Much cleaner. Continue. Okay, all we have to do is just paint this in with a strong notion of light versus dark, and this is it's going to really aid us at this point to just blur our eyes and see where we can best put the values on our canvas. This can actually all go into dark. Let's just start with a very simple approach here, because this is going to be a very light on dark area, so we can just darken that up. How do you get it to show just the canvas? It's two things. One is a window capture. So if you window capture something, it's gonna not have additional windows, and my color selector and brush presets are technically additional windows, so they don't get captured. And beyond that, I do a crop on my capture as well. So the crop removes all my boundaries, so I get just my canvas. It's a fun little situation. And I'll just add an additional light here just for the read, get the read a bit better. I'll put a little bit of this with texture, not particularly necessary, but we can put it in here. It's fine. Also, can never forget that that they're nose, by the way. Also, I will have to selectively cool down some of these shadows because they are a bit too warm. Like for example, this one that I'm just about to apply. Let's throw a bunch of cool on there because it just makes sense to do so. Not a super amount of cool. Mix a little bit of that up. Make sure it's semi-desaturated. But that is sufficient right there. This little neutral value over here needs to go more cooler as well. So we'll push you to the cool little neutral value. You can be right there maybe. And again, let's heavily try and reuse when we're painting this. So to be able to reuse, I want to make a slight modification to my values, which is I want to push this little value over here to a cool because I want to have a cool dark to work with. So we'll push this to more of a, that's not a bit too much, don't you think? There you go, that's cooling it up. So I want to have a little bit of a cool dark to work with. That's cool enough. Let's not overstate the color. Okay, so now I have a cool dark, a warm dark, the value being the same, so it's going to be coordinated. Now I can continue to paint with it. Easy enough. We're 16 minutes into the drawing. We have our proportions laid out. We're simply getting our shapes. So quite easy, quite simple. And that's important because we want to keep it nice and simple at this stage. Marking the areas for the eye, just like that. Little darkness right there underneath that eye. The proportions seem like they're holding. Fine, I don't think there's anything majorly wrong, at least not that I can see right now. Maybe you can see it. But it's hard to tell, especially because I haven't painted anything in there. There's dark over light right there, which means that I need to put that light in first, because that's how layering works. Got to think about it like that, like the traditional masters of old. So we'll add a bit of light in there. Usually I'm very tentative in putting in lights like this, but it's gonna be okay. I don't have to care too much about it. It's fine. There's a lovely warm light, right? On the left-hand side. I'd like to just get that value right now and get out of the way. So I start here. That's my base of the red. I sample this value over here, and I'll push it more towards the yellow and see if I can capture that lovely golden. So I'll bring a higher value in here. I'll test this. That seems like the value is around approximately where I want it to be. I'll maybe turn it down a little bit to get this value. But I want to push it to more of the yellow. I want to get it more warm. What does that look like? Maybe a bit too green, right? Maybe somewhere in between. That seems about right. So, well, I'm going to test apply to a few of these areas. And we'll see. That seems like it's just about okay. It needs an orange color to offset it a little bit more. But that'll be okay here. So I won't paint that with texture right now. I'll paint that with just a hard brush. Because we worry about the texture later on. We don't care about it right now. I do care a little bit about the direction though. So the direction is going to be taken into consideration here as I make these changes. Let's not go too heavy-handed now. Some of this needs to be controlled. Just like this, like this. Pull it down there, pull it down there. And there's a beautiful, lovely, rich orange color that we need to put in there. So let's just mix that up real quick. This is my first guess. That seems orange enough. Maybe a bit more desaturated, right? Because I want to save my saturation a bit more. But that seems beautiful. I love that orange. It's lovely. Okay, we can put this in a few more areas. It does go a bit darker, a bit redder in some of these areas like this, for example, but we can contend with it. Just like this.
I love watching you paint as much as I loved watching Bob Ross.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had the comparison before. I don't know if it's fair to Bob Ross, but it's a very kind thing to say. Appreciate that. We don't particularly need these lines too much, do we? I mean, we need some of them because we need those eyes, but like, a lot of them can just go to the dust. So here's what we'll do. Here's my little solemn claim. Let's get rid of the ones we don't need because they're distracting. We don't want to look at them right now. We'll leave some of the structure on the eyes because I need to know where my eyes are placed because I haven't painted them yet. But the vast majority of things can just go far away and we don't have to care about them right now because they've served their purpose and now it's time for us to bid them farewell. And now we continue, right? We make some mild little changes right here. And now again, the big question, where can I reuse, where can I reuse? So you can reuse this. Remember, all you have to look for is things that are similar enough. They don't have to be perfectly similar, but similar enough is the rule that we kind of live our life by right now. If it's similar enough, we can go for it. This is way too light for the darknesses, so I will intentionally just burn this down a bit more because it's kind of ruining my separation. And the separation is the most important thing that we're doing right now. It's the most important thing. If you don't get that separation right, it's all going to be crappy. Also, what on earth is this value? What are you doing here, little value? Did you get lost on your way to the blue area? push you down a little bit more. I want you to be nice and warm. Okay. So you don't need to have your outlines? No. We're painted, right? That's just my block-in. That's not even a line. Those are just block-ins, right? So those are never going to be in my final drawing. So I'll just get rid of them. Because when you paint, I mean, it's going to be paint on your canvas, not going to be lines on your canvas. I'm going to make a quick little rotation here. Tens, how's it going? Get this a little bit more into perspective. Oh, forgot about the eyes there. I'll do that rotation later, because I can always do that. Okay, again, quick little check. Puppy Wednesday, yes indeed. Hope you're having a good day, Tens. Get some of the darknesses here, what you're looking for. And there are of course these lights that infiltrate. What I'm really looking for is that value. If I get that value right, then I'm all good and fine. Same thing over here, really searching for that value. If I find that value, I will be good. Make a quick little check. I do need this lovely orange, this rich orange to kind of infiltrate these areas. So I'll do a couple of strokes to kind of infiltrate them. Because you see how many areas that orange is in? It's all over the place, and I'm not really changing the value all that much. I will have a very slight amount of change while I'm painting this, just from the pressure of my brush. That's basically all the variance I really need, because again, you're not trying to capture every single variance of value and detail and texture. That's not the point when you're doing paintings like this, especially when it comes to speed, especially when it comes to study, especially when it comes to just painting in general. You really want to just simplify. That is the name of the game right now. The better you can simplify, the better you will be at painting. Lovely, lovely values right there. Because the details, they need that good home, you know? Details can't just be put on there arbitrarily with no sense of exactly where they're supposed to go. The details are important. They're important to finish the drawing. But to start out, to get that essential quality of it, if your drawing is reliant on your details for it to convey the message that it's supposed to, then that's going to be a colossal failure of fundamentals if that's the case, because, and it's not going to be the case ever, because no drawing can be saved by details. Get a darkness right there. That's going pretty okay. Make a little bit of a blur, and now we check. I will make sure that I soften up some of these edges, by the way, because we have a few of these selection edges kind of sitting on our canvas right now. We want to be a little bit careful about them, because selection, while extremely useful, is extremely hard. So we want to make sure that we have a good little control over the selection edges in our drawing. And again, over here, I can bring some of that beautiful rim light to life. Keep it nice and soft. I'm intentionally varying my brushes up so that I get a nice soft edge, and I'll tighten it up a lot around the face as we continue with the drawing. That's going to be the idea. I can bring a bit of this light in here. And it's really important, especially the simplification is even more important, because of the idea that we want to cover everything with paint as soon as possible. We want to get a solid coverage with paint, a very accurate coverage with paint as much as we can, at least in terms of value. And the reason we want that is because once you have that, it becomes so easy for you to say, listen, I don't really like that. Listen, I do like this. It becomes easier to make claims about your painting because suddenly you have context. Suddenly you have information about what everything exists in. It's so much harder to, in isolation, say, this value is correct, this color is correct. It's very, very hard to make this kind of claim because you lack the context. So unless you have this incredible computational five-head brain, it's going to be really difficult for you to really make an objective case for any one color, any one value. It's very possible, and you can achieve this at one point or the other in your little journey, but I don't have it yet, and there's a good chance that you don't either, so it's good to know. It's just good to make it easier on yourself. Choose the path that's going to be successful, not what's going to be objectively optimized, I guess. Like, for example, an artist like Artgerm would never put any construction lines when drawing a woman from profile, because why would he? He's drawn tens of thousands of women in profile. Would I put construction lines when drawing a woman in profile? Of course, because otherwise it'd look like a gremlin. Gotta be careful, gotta understand where I stand in the hierarchy of things. But of course, what you choose to use is gonna vary after you gain experience, right? It's gonna vary once you're more comfortable with certain ideas. That's perfectly fine. That is just the nature of the game. I want to add that beautiful highlight there near the mouth, near the maw. I choose this little value over here, maybe a bit more brighter than that, so I have that lovely pop. And of course, important to kind of follow that general gesture of it as well, because it does have a gesture to it. It goes like that. How beautiful does that look? Nice. The weather in the Netherlands today is not too bad whatsoever. It's a bit overcast outside. We had a slight little amount of rain in the morning, but beyond that, not too shabby whatsoever, and I am not to complain. Because I would actually like to wear a shirt indoors, if at all possible. Don't like just walking around like a giant chimp. Would prefer to just wear what I'd like. And thankfully I'm afforded to. Because today was not too bad. Not too bad whatsoever. We're gonna get a bit of that warmness underneath here. We'll sort that out in a second. Right now I'm kind of losing some of my read over here. Again, get rid of these lines over here. Because we don't need them. See you later, lines. We appreciate your service. But we don't need you anymore. We don't need that construction. I want to see a little bit of this right. Not too much, but a little bit. So the first thing we do is we recognize the fact that there's a little bit of a form shadow right there. Form shadow implying there's going to be a very soft transition from the light to the dark, and we indicate that light transition. Already now your eye begins to give you context in this area. It says, wait a second, there might be something over there. And now we provide the eye with additional pieces of information, like a little bit of a light right there, a little bit of a light right underneath the eye. And then suddenly this kind of breathes a little bit of life into it. So we're getting there, we're getting to be somewhat good here. I'm going to add a bit of an airbrush underneath the dog, because I want to indicate that the entire model kind of folds in on itself, or rather has an underneath plane. So the underneath plane is going to be lit by a little bit of this warm reflected. So I'm going to throw a little bit of that little bit of that lighter value right there underneath, just to show that it's a bit of reflected right there. I feel like it's important to kind of get a good read. Let's put those eyes in. We have 27 minutes expired on the clock, which means we have 17 minutes left to finish the drawing, which seems to be ample to me. It's important not to consider too much. Okay, well that could have been done better. Let's do it with this little brush over here. There is one little highlight layer that I need to be putting in to finish this drawing, but that can be done later. The highlights, while they do look beautiful, they don't make a drawing. It's not the reason that you draw. I will infiltrate some of these blues with a bit of a dark. The blues over there are actually areas that are naturally quite dark on the dog's skin, but they're illuminated by this lovely blue light. So you have this naturally dark, warm area illuminated by the light, so it goes a little bit more towards the cool in certain areas like that, which looks fine. I scratched my elbow there because it was itchy. And now we continue. Get a bit of this darkness right there. Looks nice and beautiful. Okay, nice, simple, evocative shapes like this. Excuse me, Mr. Line, where did you come from? Are you a new addition here? Were you always here? Can I control Z and check? I guess you were always here. Well, good to see you. Welcome to the crew. Let's just make you into something. And something you were made into. Nice. Cool. Let's actually settle the eyes right now, because the eyes need to be settled. I'm going to add just a little bit of this orange to kind of place the eye. So I'll just sample the orange directly off of my chest there, because I want to have some orange that is coordinated inside the piece already. So I'll throw in that orange just like this. Still have a full view of my entire drawing. And I'll add a bit of a dark value on top, just so I place it, and then I'll remove those lines. So boom, lines are gone. So now I have a rough idea of where things are going. There are no longer any lines in this drawing. We don't need them anymore. Let's start with those beautiful, beautiful eyes. And these eyes are going to be really important nails, so I'll take my time with them. Ooh, who's a good boy? How's it going, Bill Nash? Follow Bill Nash. Excellent photographer. Good friend of the stream. Good to see you, man. How's it going? So we start right there. We get that dark value, because the dark value is important. Let's make sure to swirl all these shapes around, because with dogs and with most predators, with most beasts like this entire area around here, it kind of has to support the eye. We can actually make a little bit of this turn here, because I've been waiting to do that. I'm drawing it at a bit of an angle because of my own personal inclination. Yeah, follow Bill, excellent artist. In the idea or in the market for a good photographer in the Vegas area. Also, if you just want to get references, make sure you hit him up and say, hey Bill, these references ain't doing it for me on the internet. Can you do me a favor? And he'll be like, yeah, sure, let me bail you out real quick. And I'll hit you with some classic pictures. Some excellent Bill Nash quality pictures. Go check him out. Also a streamer, by the way. If you're into photography, go learn from him. Get a bit of this darkness about here in the eye. You don't need as much as you think. The human mind will come in eventually. Give it enough information, it will complete the story eventually. So the idea with most painting, especially with painting that we kind of do here on the stream, which is a realistic kind of painting. We just want to give enough information to the eye, and then we're done, right? We give enough information. We say, hey, listen, I have this, this, and this, and then the mind goes, oh, wait a second, I know what that is. So we don't want to force feed it down the mind's throat. That's not what we want to do. So in some areas, for example, areas in light, the mind will say, wait a second, this isn't the light, so I expect to have more detail. Which makes sense, then you put more detail in there. Oh, is that a bot? Ban the bot! Get him, Just Abs. Bit of that eye. Look how beautiful you are, you lovely, lovely pupper. So the thing is, I want to have that dark, dark eyebrow on top, right? But it's difficult for us to see that because we have a dark context above a dark. So that's why it makes sense for us to paint in this little light right above the eye, right there. And now this dark really shines. Gotta remember just how relative things are. So now we can put in that beautiful, beautiful dark. Just like that. The eye itself is usually outlined by a bit of a dark as well. So I'm not really manipulating my darks nearly that much because I don't really need to. This dark is small enough that I can kind of just live with it being kind of tiny. Now this orange is just a base value. I can stick with it as my dark value for the eye itself, but remember the eye is a sphere, and spheres are... It's also not just a sphere, but it's not a matte sphere, it's a reflective sphere. So it's going to reflect what it sees. It's a very interesting question to ask when you try to render anything that's reflective. The question more often becomes, what am I looking at as opposed to what's actually on the eye, because it's just giving you a mirror of what's in the scene. For example, I can even tell what the light source is in the scene because it's somewhat squarish, the highlight, which means that the highlight's probably coming from a window or from a square light source. The same thing happens when you're painting metals. So when you're painting metals, very seldom do you ever ask yourself the question, what exactly is the local color of the metal? Most likely you ask yourself the question, what on earth is the context of this image? And that's what usually gets you more of a bang for your buck. Let's throw in a bit of a highlight in there. It's like a world record for how quickly I put this this eye in. Usually I wait till like 45 minutes or 40 minutes to put the eye in. But we put it in nice and early today. Don't want to overstate that too much. It's sufficient right now, but it could use a bit of an added pop, I'd say. Also, the temperature needs to be considered. We know the light source is cool in temperature, so the highlight's also going to be cool. Even highlights, things that are blown towards the light, do have a temperature to them. It's important to consider it. Just an added bit of context. The more you add, the more you refer to your source. The more information you add about the direction of your light source, the quality of your light source, the more the image is going to appear to be convincing. That's completely the idea. So again, the light source itself is a bit of a cool, so I'm at a bit of a quandary here because I could just lighten up this little gray here, or this very desaturated blue. I could just lighten it up, but that kind of defeats the point because if this was a blue source, because of the way the materials interact with your light, it doesn't just go lighter, it goes more towards the color of my light source. So it doesn't just go light, it just also becomes more blue. So there's a huge shift that happens there. Not just your bread and butter interaction of light and surface right there. Because the planes that are going to be perpendicular to your light source, they're going to take on the most amount of characteristic from your light source. That's how it works. That's the fundamental right there. So these planes that are going a bit lighter, I'm making the active decision to push them to more of a blue. Because I'm interpreting that light source as more blue. Of course, some light sources can just simply shift, right? Some very neutral, desaturated light sources, that's all they basically do. They're just going to shift things. And that's perfectly fine, right? That's why oftentimes a lot of painters, especially old painters, would paint something in terms of what they call, I think it's called north light. I'm not fully certain what north light means, but I'm fairly certain it's a very neutral lighting condition. It doesn't affect the subject matter too much, lets the local colors kind of bloom a little bit more than they usually do. Okay, 35 minutes into the drawing. We are progressing quite well. I do have to rein in some of my edges, I'll do that right now. Also, while I do this, I can add a bit more variance as well. I can throw in some warms in here if I'd like to. But again, some context required for some of these shadows, as well as this large shadow underneath here. This I will actually do with a bit of selection tool because I want to get this in quickly. But there's a large bulge there that I don't seem to... It's not very justified with value right now. Let's get that in there. That large bulge right there. It's important to get these large bulges because some people are just looking for it. So again, we just think about this as a three-dimensional object, which means it's going to have light on one side, almost like a pyramid to a certain degree. So it's going to have light on this side, it's going to have dark on the other side. So I render it accordingly. So the more strokes I make here, the more it's going to be justified. And I can always fix that selection edge later on. I don't particularly worry too much about fixing that. But I just want to get this overall read properly. So I'm just sampling darks from my image to kind of get this read appropriately. And there we go, that's my read. That's how I bring this object into 3D space. And I can always fix that value later on, or fix the edge later on. So it's good to get that overall read first, and then you fix that value later on. That's how we operate. I want to go back into that eye and fix it a little bit more, but let me first get the other eye in as well. This is, after all, a 45-minute study, and we have 36 minutes left. I'm sorry, we have 36 minutes expired, which means we don't have all that much time. We have some time, though. It's important not to just rush things. Keep things nice and collected. When you're making changes to color, very important, just take that value that you already have over there and then make the change. Make the hue shift after you do a value sample. Because you want them to coordinate. You don't want to have a random ass valued color in your darkness. That makes no sense whatsoever. So I want to be a little bit careful about this. So when you're making that hue shift, when you want to add a color to an existing value, sample that color first and then make the change. I want a nice, lovely, warm orange right here in the shadows. Let's see if I can't get that. Oh, this is not really working out, is it? What about you? Are you working out? You're working out. That'll work. Let's get a nice little warm... That's a bit too red, doesn't it? Push it to more of a yellow. You work out just fine. Okay, I get the little value, using a bit of a multiply right there. And now I have something to work with in the darks. And one of the issues with a triangle color selection tool, or a color palette even, is that the darks don't get very saturated when you use it. So if I want to get saturated the darks, I just use a multiply while I work. It tends to work out. I do actually waste some time by doing that, but what can you do? This is the life we lead. Get some more little context right there. So the darks, they don't matter all that much, so I don't want to put any detail in them. So I'll intentionally kind of key them down, because you don't need to put that much detail in the darks, especially in a realistic painting, because that's just there to kind of give the entire drawing form, which is already doing, right? We already have form from the drawing. We're good in that respect. But the edge of the dark is important, right? That's something that actually is quite important to portray accurately, because the edge of the dark is very, very strongly silhouetted against the light background. So if you don't get that right, the whole drawing kind of fails. What I mean to say is that this edge over here, this right-hand side edge right there, even though the things within it aren't as important, the edge itself is very important, because it's going to give us context that we need to be able to complete the picture. So by kind of mildly affecting that context, we're doing a lot more than just fixing an edge. We're giving a lot of context, a lot of information in the dark. So there's going to be some hardish lights over here that I'll put in right now. So that goes a bit harder. That's way too... It's way too simple though right there. This is much better, because the brush I used just then was way too uniform. I didn't like it too much. Okay, there's going to be a few of these lights right there. Can I apply them like right over there? So much beautiful things happening with the ear, but I can't really affect them too much in this piece because my focus was elsewhere throughout the piece. So I'll just have a little bit of an indication of what's happening there, but not too much. Also, some consideration has to be made over here by being somewhat softer, because again, I want most of the information to be coming from the most of the information to be coming from the face, not from the ear, but just enough up here for it to be somewhat okay, for the brain to go, you know what, there's enough there that I think that's the ear, because that's basically what we're doing, right? That's the art of evocation when you're painting. The art of evocation is the idea of you don't paint things, you evoke them. So sometimes when they're in the area of focus, you have no choice whatsoever, and you have to paint them as they are. But when they're not in the area of focus, then you can start pulling some really big tricks on the mind. So you know what? You think that's an eye, you think that's an ear, you think that's whatever it is, but it's not. It's just a bunch of random ass colors that are arranged in a man's going to trick you. If you can get away with that, then that's a successful painting right there. Some people go crazy with this idea, man. Some people say that it's bad realism unless you do that. No, I don't think I'm that crazy with that idea right now. I think if you paint something completely, it looks beautiful. Who cares exactly how much it evokes, but it's still a consideration to be made. It should be evoking something. Otherwise, it's just painting way too much. Look at that beautiful blue right there. What a beautiful boy. Okay. Let's give some information right here. First of all, that little nose shadow, a bit too harsh, a bit too purple. Let's fix that. One of the first values I applied. In fact, I think that's the last bastion of my initial base value. So we can just bring this into more of a blue right there. I can do this in a few ways. I can hue shift that, or I can just straight paint over it. I chose to straight paint over it. No biggie whatsoever, that's perfectly fine. I'll give a bit more of a notion, a bit more of an indication of my nose right there. Just like that. And also a slight little marking down here to give you a bit of context on the actual nostril. There's a crazy light over there for some reason. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't know what it was doing there, but you know, it's a mistake if it was done intentionally. Because there's not that harsh of a reflected light. There is going to be some reflected, but not nearly as much. And a bit of a light right there. It's going to give a bit more of a form to the for the mob because it goes in and it goes out. Almost like the philtrum of an actual person. A philtrum is a little divot right under your nose. I see a little bit of that over there. I can add a bit of a shape over here to give him his good boy snout maybe. Just like this, perhaps. I already can tell I'm not going to be very happy with the way that I do this. Well, let's not say that. That's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. I shouldn't say that. That's a shitty thing to say. Let's just try our best. There's a little shadow coming from the right-hand side, right? We can paint that with this. Because it's a very soft shadow. A bit darker than that. I like to just do it with this. We'll just slightly burn that, that foam shadow in there. Get that little divot near the maw. Looks nice. It's sharper, you see that? It's sharper. When you're abstracting something, make sure you maintain the abstraction, right? So if it's a sharp abstraction, if it looks sharp to your eye, maintain it. Otherwise it's going to look weird. So we maintain that sharpness with a few strokes like that. Set that. So the right hand side of the nose needs to, I need to slightly fix the shape because the shape is not doing all that it needs to. So it goes a little bit more inward and then a little bit more outward. Also it's a bit more dark on this side. Let's put a little bit of a notion right now. Let's get that eye sorted out. Probably should have been doing this a little bit earlier. That's totally my bad, but it is what it is. Thankfully this eye doesn't need to be done nearly as much as the other one. It needs just a bare hint of information right there. So what is the barest hint? You get that light on top. Why do you get the light on top? Because you need the dark on the bottom. So we get the dark on the bottom, just like that. I'll sample the local darks right there. Right, so we need this lovely, lovely, almost like an eyeliner, dark around it. I'll push the dark a bit harder so this is more visible, because I want the eye to be looking here anyway. So it's almost like we just circle the entire eye with a bit of a dark right there. But of course I can't be that ham-fisted, I gotta be a little bit careful about this. I'll add a bit more darkness right here, because I feel like it's appropriate, because I do see it in the reference. And also there's a foam shadow over here, if you know dog skulls, which I do a little bit. I can add a bit more information right there, perhaps, towards the sides. Just give it a bit more of a doggy kind of flavor. It does matter how you handle the edges. For example, the second I do something like this, for example, it makes much more sense what I drew over here. This value over here just seems a little bit too light, doesn't it? It's kind of killing my read. Because even though graphically that is a lighter area, which means that this area just has a lighter color in general, because there are light parts of the fur, there are dark parts of the fur, even then, that area over there, despite being a light part in the darkness, it's still a bit too light, so I don't like how that was. So we make an adjustment, a very slight one, but an important one. Let's add in that beautiful, beautiful eye. This eye might be a little bit wonky, but hey, that's the life we lead. Can't complain too much, I waited too long on it. Bit of that darkness right there. I'll add a little bit of that light towards the side. And I'll toss in that highlighter with a bit of a square brush. Keep it the same value maybe. Cute. That's 45 by the way, that's our time. If you'll allow me, I'm gonna put a little bit of whiskers on there. So while you guys upload it, give me a bit of time. Put a couple of whiskers on this boy, and we're done. That was a really fun one, man. That was intensely fun. what a fantastic painting that is. This is a free reference from Pexel, by the way. So God bless whoever made this free for us to use. Oh, you know what we didn't use in this drawing? We didn't use any grays, man. It feels kind of bad. Grays are so beautiful when drawn on dogs. I do wish I put more grays on here. Looking good, great work. Thanks, Apache. Appreciate it, dude. I'll put a couple of these whiskers in. They're not too many, so you'll excuse me. Just a little bit more context. A bit of a dark through here. And also, don't ever forget to use your airbrush to change local values. So important, dude. Especially when you're painting soft stuff. It's great to use the airbrush for this. For example, if I think that this little transition over here is a bit too harsh, which I do think that it is, I just sample this value over here and just go over it slightly. And I fix it whole. That whole read's fixed because of that. It's a great thing to do to kind of finalize your designs. Painting something like this. Very nice. Let's leave it there. It's gonna make this a little bit less strokey though. Okay, that's our first study. Fun. 47. Pretty not bad. Okay, let's save this as 1, because it's the first study of the day. I'm not ready to do this yet, so I'll be watching, no problem. Do as you please. There's no compulsion. That was really fun though. Great exercise in simplification. So hopefully you guys either confirmed something or denied something with your own ability to simplify, but a great reference to kind of test just how well you do simplify. Because there's a lot of complexity, but I think it is achievable. I'm not saying I did a great job at it, but I think it is definitely achievable. Let's actually give a name to this file because I actually need to upload this later. Let's call this dog1. Cool. That was a lot of fun. Do a quick review and then let's go right into the next one. Dude, nice job guys, holy shit. Okay. Here's a review for today for the first study. Go all the way to the top. Polly, lurking somewhere in the chat, but good to see you. I think you spammed the bag emote earlier, but glad to have you in on this reference with us. Not too bad whatsoever. May I run away a little bit with the dark simplification? I want you to kind of just have a bit of a handle over that because overall this value does exist. This dark value does exist over here. But they're quite a little bit more separate from the value over here. Let me just see this in my different monitor maybe. Yeah, maybe a bit too harsh on that value, but you're strongly thinking about the simplification, which is a very important thing. I would be a little bit careful about these worms over here. I'd still darken those up, still simplify those up a little bit, but I can clearly see that you're trying to reuse, which is exactly what you should be doing, so it's looking quite good. I think overall not too bad whatsoever. So I think a lot of the simplification is good decision making. Just maybe the shapes could be addressed a bit better, but not too bad whatsoever. I think it's pretty good. Like this is correct, that's correct, the values are correct, just the shapes could be a bit better I think. And then some of the decisions in the light are a little bit questionable because, for example, this much of darkness in an area that's technically in the light, it sort of breaks the cohesion of your piece. So be a little bit careful about that. Like these darks, they don't go the same amount as these darks, otherwise the image tends to look a lot flatter. So if you're wondering where the flatness is coming from, I want you to think about just separating these two values. So there are going to be shadows that have the same value in the dark and in the lights, but I want you to be careful about not having overwhelming amounts of those values over here in the lights, because it still should read as the lights, right? It should still read as an area that's affected by the lights, which means that a lot of these values are going to go a bit higher. So be a bit careful about that if you're wondering how to get that solid read. It could work. I love the textures. Great stuff. TMP, pretty fucking good, man. I like the study. I think the value decisions, as always, are pretty strong. Yeah, I can't really mark it as a problem. Love the eyes. Really cool. And a very blocky style. You might have joined us a little bit later. but always fantastic job. I do like that it's going a little bit harder than your usual work though, because usually you tend to be a little bit more softer, but I like to see that hardness that I'm seeing right now is a great change and a very welcome thing to see as well, because that combined with your usual is going to be really, really killer. So awesome stuff. That's my little doggy right there. I think it looks okay. Slightly muddled up the proportions, I feel like, a little bit. Maybe missing some of the gesture. I would love to get the lights in the eye, in the ear over here. That's such a cool little contrasty light that I wish I put that in there. As well as some of the sharper edges over here. I could have done that as well. Like, these things don't take as much time. Like, when I was trying to fix something down here, for example, I could have spent the time up here, put those sharp little edges right there. I think it would have looked quite nice. But overall, not too bad. The proportions are a little bit strange. The eyes need to be a little bit wider than they are right now, I think. And maybe a bit more light up here on the head to get a better read, because there's a cast shadow of the ear right over there. Should have done that a bit better. But overall, not too bad. Eerie Canaries typing. Did you do this with us, Eerie? Good puppers, cool. Alright, number 2. Coming up, let me just read my Discord messages. Okay, cool. Just to read that in. So what I mean to say, by the way, guys, if you're curious, is that you see how much better this looks when I do something like this? Because I have a bunch of softness already in my piece, but a little bit of softness goes a long, or a bit of hardness goes a long way, because when you build up that basis, when you build up that strong basis of soft, this hardness just looks so pretty. Something like that, like it just adds a dimension to the piece that wasn't existing before. See how flat that looks before? Well, I just did a couple of ham-fisted strokes, but you get the idea. Kinda cool. Okay, number 2, coming up. This one over here, let me just drag the initial one where we ended it. So I'm not gonna save that change. But good, though, very good. Because I remember us having, at least me personally, I had such a problem with a similar study before. So I'm glad to see a bit of improvement in there. So I did make a very marked note about my proportions going a bit awry, and thankfully we were able to somewhat overcome that. It looks somewhat like a dog, thank goodness. So I'd mark that up as a win. And also the simplification was very, very fun to sort of handle. So it's good to kind of figure out where everything goes. Okay, let's just get this in, and then we can begin on the next one. If you guys have been itching to get in on one of the studies, here's your chance. Number 2 is going to be this little chimp over here. If you have good knowledge of human anatomy, it's going to be a lot easier for you, because at least based on what I know about drawing chimps, they're very human-like. Duh, I know, but still. Much more than one might think, so knowing your regular anatomy, just your regular human anatomy, is going to serve you well in this study. I almost like it when I put this graphic white next to the sides. Almost looks like a border for painting. Kind of makes it look a little bit more cool than it is. But of course I can't upload it to Instagram like this. It's a dumb idea. Okay, let's get rid of this. Goodbye, little puppy. I went straight to turning the dog into an original. I'll post it later when I'm done. No problem, dude. Is it going to be like a human dog? Like Doggy Kruger from SPD Power Rangers? That's a great show, by the way. You should watch that if you haven't. Okay, let's fill this in with a bit of value. Where on earth is my fill tool? There it is. I barely use it. Is F the fill tool? It is! My goodness, that actually saves me a bunch of time. Learn something every day. Let me just neutralize my canvas. Let us not commit the cardinal sin of having this reference the same size. Because at the beginning we want to just capture that overall, that abstract, not abstract, but that very simplified look of our painting. So everything gets right with the measurements. We'll begin the study in just a couple of seconds. Let me take a swig of water real quick. Awesome. We have something in the critique section. Can someone tag me? My chat might not be working. Now it's working. Love to join, so tired though, long day. We'll join next time hopefully. Don't worry about it, dude. Wait, why is it bad to have the ref the same size as what you're working on? Because you tend to kind of jump into details if everything's the same size. Also, it's harder to evaluate the overall look of the painting, the overall ideas and the larger overarching ideas if things are all zoomed up and in your face. So I keep everything hyper zoomed out while I work, and I keep the reference even more zoomed out. We can look at this crit in between if you like, John. I don't mind that whatsoever. Let's look at this crit real quickly before we get into the next study. You guys can go ahead and start if you'd like. I think your skin's getting a lot better, John. Your humans are getting a lot better. Let's put this in here. Call me dumb, but I didn't understand what you mean. Okay, I can explain it in simpler terms. So it's like this. So there are certain gestural issues with everybody's drawing, which are hard to see. For instance, when I draw a line over here, I draw a line that's slightly skewed, like this. Sometimes it's difficult to see whether or not it's skewed or not. Right, when I'm this close to my drawing, when I keep working on my drawing, this skew is hard to see. But when I go all the way out, and I zoom all the way out, those larger mistakes are very, very clear, very, very evident. And when you start a painting, especially if you want to do the painting quickly, the larger mistakes are what's usually the cause of any piece becoming a failure. Because the larger mistakes are the ones that we're really out to solve in the first kind of half an hour. Mistakes in overall proportion, overall gesture, overall value, overall color. Those are the mistakes. So we don't really care too much about being completely in here, zoomed up to the microscopic level, and being able to evaluate these little changes, because those tend not to matter in pieces that are done that quickly. In fact, they don't tend to matter in any piece, not to mention. But the overall read is important. So when you stay super zoomed out, and when you keep the reference even more zoomed out, what I essentially get from the reference is none of the detail. I get a bunch of the overall gesture, a bunch of the overall value, and it's much easier for me to not get caught up on the details. Because the most important thing to the drawing is not the details. For example, I don't really care where this clump of hair is in relation to this clump of hair. That's not important to me. What's really important to me is the head with respect to the shoulder. What's really important to me is for me to get this overall parallel nature of the folded arms. And also to notice that this little line over here tapers outward, that this line tapers inward. It's important to see that, so it's a very good practice to keep it. Also, finally, when it comes to learning proportional measurement tools, it's very difficult to learn the measurement tools if you're trying to one-to-one transfer measurements from your reference to your drawing. That's almost like a visual tracing. And there's nothing wrong with that particularly, but if you're trying to learn better proportion or better proportional or better relative proportion techniques, it's going to be serving against you because you'll try and sight size more than you actually try to use the proportional measurement techniques. So in that respect as well, it's a bad idea. So just generally speaking, unless you're drawing details, keep it small, keep the entire thing small. It's just overall one of those best practices that you can do as an artist. Just like if you're drawing this traditionally, if you're doing an oil painting, you'd step back a bunch of times. Same thing. I can't post the OC reference because it's too big. Are you kidding me? What is this? I see it. Okay, let's check this out, John. I think it's a good painting so far. I'm actually going to save this on one of my mood boards. Hope that made some sense, Tech Girl. So, I know that you're doing some studies for proportion right now, for your tigers. If you're super zoomed in, well, don't do that. It's one of those objective things, you know? It's like, it's not a matter of preference, it's just easier. This is your shadows right now. I see that you're redefining some of the lighting directions here. What is this additional reference you provided me, John, from a master painting? What is that? Are you trying to incorporate that particular lighting situation into your piece? Also, give me a bit of a backstory here. That is light, that's why skin is red. Wait, the light is red in this drawing? I didn't want to add strong shadows to this one except for the head thing. Okay, so it's like Charlie selectively masking out lights and shadows. Makes sense to me. Oh, you want to add shadows over here. Now I see. You want to add contrast. I thought this was like an additional part of the drawing. That makes sense to me right now. So let's pull up an Asaro head, because I have to use one for this. So this is a question in terms of cast shadow, and it's a very interesting question indeed, because shadows behave differently depending on what kind of shadow they are. So if you get a pop quiz on how many types of shadow exist in drawing, it's 2. It's cast shadow, form shadow. The funny thing about cast shadow is that the entire formation of the actual shadow and the topography of the object depends entirely on what it's casted on, right? The actual, like, the layout of it, the shape of it depends on what's casting, but the levels and exactly what particular topography it occupies, that's entirely based on what it's casted upon. So you need to know what it's casting upon for you to be able to draw it accurately and convincingly. So let's just get a quick little Asaro head here, because I need it. Okay, there's my Asaro. I'm going for the ref. I'm going for the ref like the right. So you're going for that right condition? Okay, well, we can do a few things that are going to get you there. So let's first evaluate what makes the right reference look like the right reference. And then secondly, we'll evaluate how to get that cast shadow looking like it's actually a cast shadow, right? I think that's important. So what makes this ref the ref? So this is a painting about the light, about the shadow, because again, the light values are really blown out in this. I'm sure if you sample this, you see this kind of burns out the white in a bunch of places. That's basically burned out the white. This is over here, this orange is burned out the white. So this is very much a drawing about the shadows, which means that all the light values are burned to the lights, and you have this long dynamic range in the shadows. So how do you achieve that on this particular type of drawing? So let me just quickly check what you've done. So the issue over here is that the values in the lights and the values in the shadows are a little bit too closely compacted, which is a problem. We don't want that to happen. So we can do this in a few ways. We can blow this out over here, or we can darken this out. I'll maybe do a bit of both. So let me duplicate this, and for my first change, what I'll do is I'll do something you see Charlie do all the time, which is just darken up this whole idea over here. So let me just get the little adjustment curve here for value. Oh, shit. Shouldn't do this with a mouse. Bring that down a little bit more. I should have created a filter mask, my bad. Adjust, color adjustment tools, create filter mask, because if I create a filter mask, then I can erase. Boom. Big shock. I can make that change right there. Okay, so darken up the skin, step number 1. Easy peasy. And now I want to blow this light right there. God damn, that's creepy. Okay, so let's just blow this light out real quick. So I can just paint over this. What's a good way of doing this? Do I just paint over? There's so many fun ways of doing this. Let's just, we'll just completely blow that value out of proportion. So we can start right here. I'm assuming you want something of this red here, something of that orange red. So I'll do it this way maybe. Because it's important that we blow this out. It needs to be blown out, otherwise it doesn't capture the same effect. So I'll do a little bit of that initial little change right there. Also, a lot of this gets blown out, by the way, like this as well. What does the shirt look like? Wait, what is the dress? Do you have any reference for this little shift here? If not, I'll just paint it based on what I know of shifts like this. So that'll go into the light right there. I want to paint this with this little tool right here. That goes into the light right there. So there's a light. This green over here gets pushed towards the light as well. So basically just blow out the lights first and foremost. So I want to have that strong indication of light and shadow. Just like this. Cool, right? It's kind of neat. Because what I'm afforded to do after I get that done is that I actually have some range to work in my shadows. Also, this whole There's a bit of a proportional issue with the entire body. I'm gonna wish this over here. Oops, let me just fix that. Get you out of the way. Let's Control C, Control V here. It'll be a lot closer. Something like that. Let's erase the appropriate positions here. Make sure there's enough room here. It's a pretty important adjustment, this one. Helps a lot. So let me understand this correctly, so I actually give you advice that's worth giving. You want to make this drawing the same kind of lighting condition as your reference, right? As this reference? Did I get that wrong? Because this is the first step you take in order to get that correctly sort of situated, right? You want to first get this light blown out. This goes heavily into subsurface right here. It goes light and then subsurface. And then shadow on this side. It's right there. I can Control E and then merge those two things together. This over here can go more towards the red. So I'm waiting for your answer, but until then I'll just keep moving on until I can either unify or at least get that lighting where I think I need it to be. I'll get that orange here maybe. Just like so. There we go. See cheek. Oh, you mean you want to get that? As in, I wouldn't even do in that particular fashion, right? Because I want to indicate here. Okay, so you want to indicate that light's just coming from this side, right? From the back? I guess it's still possible. Because we can just do this change here, which is simple enough. Let's do it like this real quick. Just select that front plane of the hair. Make all of this the same. Okay, now we just need to burn that in. Get a lovely rich color right there. So just very, very strong change. Because don't worry about the edge quality when you're doing things like this. It doesn't matter. Just fix that overall direction of the light, and then you always have the luxury of going in there and then doing whatever you want with the edges after that. It's gonna help in that idea. Also, how do you decide the shadow color? First of all, I want to go deeply saturated here for the hair because there's going to be a ton of bleed through. It's going to be a ton of subsurface going through here. And I don't want to pick just grays because grays will just kill the image immediately. I mean, grays are fine, but grays are only important when you already have a basis for saturation already in the image. So this orange over here was picked. What was the initial color? This orange was picked I just looked at the orange over here in the ref and I thought, okay, that makes some sense. Also, subsurface tends to warm up stuff. So I warm it up because it's subsurface. A lot of this is subsurface, so. That's an initial choice. And I can just make it work. But the thing is, I don't want to have a very, well, two things. I don't want to have a very slight amount of value difference. Which is what you had, because you had a very, like these values are super comparable. There wasn't a super difference between light and shadow, so I fixed the value first. For the cast shadows, the cast shadows are going to be exactly the same value, relatively speaking, as all the other shadows on the face, right? Because ultimately, light's being blocked. So, for example, whatever shadow value is over here on the face, and this is something that we know from drawing light spots and light blotches. So basically, the shadow values that are over here, the cast shadow values on the face over here are going to be the exact same value as the things over here, most likely. So that's value. The color will depend on how much ambient hits here. So I can maybe orange up those cast shadows because of the... Is the paint over? Yeah. So it is a paint over. So I could maybe, so first of all, you have to understand that the shadows are going to be the same basically. So for example, if there's a cast shadow in the face over here from the brow, or if there's a cast shadow on the face from over here, unless it's an edited shadow, which means it's a shadow in a shadow, it's going to be the same value because a shadow is a shadow, the skin's a skin. So for example, right over there, I'm just going to get rid of this for a second because I think it's going to be done a bit better. Nah, it wasn't obvious to me either. Like when I was doing this, it wasn't obvious when I was doing it with the light block studies, which is why we do studies, right, to figure this stuff out. But over there, I had an issue with, I didn't know how to interpret the form shadows from, because when you have spotlights, even the spotlight areas will have a form shadow. For example, this will be just like this if it was a blotch of light, but if it was over here, for instance, near the zygomatic bone, you'd have a bit of a form shadow over here. So you have a bit of a soft edge over here of the light. Even though the light blotch is like this, when it's over here, it casts over here, which you have an area of light, but then it gets a form shadow right over here. So it goes a little bit into the shadow right there. So just basically, when you have a cast shadow, just treat it like any other shadow in the face, except it's shaped a bit differently. So any other cast shadow in the face, specifically because the cast shadow has a value. So cast shadows tend to be the darkest areas, along with occlusions on most things, but realize that this cast shadow over here is going to be subject to a bunch of other lights because it's on top. So for example, it might be hit by some of the bounce light from the hair, because the hair is being lit, there's probably going to be some light filtering through, right? So it's not going to be exactly the same value, but it's going to be approximately there, so like there. Also, you have to realize that over here, in this area, it's going to be additive, right? Because you have the form shadow over here. So this over here is the form shadow of the hair. I'll blue it out for you. So this is the form shadow of the hair right there. And there's going to be a cast shadow right over there. This is John's work, Heidi, but how's it going? There's going to be an additive shadow right over here, you see? So we'll just draw that like a circle. So this area over here is going to go super dark. Not super dark, but somewhat dark, because it's a shadow in a shadow, right? And then when it comes here, it's just a regular shadow, because it's just a regular shadow right there. This is a regular cast. And over here is also going to be a regular shadow. This sort of idea, okay? I wish I didn't do these blue lines because I want to show you how it looks like without that. Let me just do it like this. Why isn't that dark on the skin if it's dark in the eye socket? Why isn't that dark on the skin if it's dark on the eye socket? I mean, I'm just going based on your own value structure, which isn't exactly depicting my light source, so I haven't fixed that yet. But I'm just saying that if there was a light coming from this way, basically, there's a faint light coming from this way, allowing us to have this much light over here, this is how it's going to be. So this is just an explanation of fundamentals. I'll put it in the context of the piece in a second. So we'll have this kind of idea. You see how that kind of fits? Because the values need to correspond, right? Because it can't go darker than what's possible on the skin. That's how you make it fit, generally speaking. So now let's put it in the context of your piece. So in the piece in general, because of your lighting condition, again, I want to have a strong separation of my lights and darks. So the darks, now I have more of a range in my darks, but I still want it to look dark in comparison to my my drawing. So also you have to realize that because this is going to be hit by so much light, I'm going to have a bunch of Fresnel on this side. It's going to be a ton of Fresnel, which is that kind of rim-like kind of idea. It's going to have so much of that over here. So don't be afraid to just punch that in, because you really want that to have a solid read. Because I'm assuming that's metal as well, right? I spent more time on that headpiece than the rest of the piece. Yeah, so I saw you asking Maddie if there's ways to abstract this, and there definitely are. I think she made a great point to say that a lot of abstraction takes time. But I think what she didn't mention over there is the fact that if you get better at the abstraction overall, it's way faster to learn it if you have learned the abstraction. So it's useful. So don't be afraid to blow this out, by the way, with the light. It's going to be blown out. You have to like just contend with the idea that it is blown out. The headpiece effort is obvious. This shit takes forever. Yeah, I can show you how I would do it if you're curious. We'll do that as the last thing in this crit. But again, you blow this out like this. I just did it for a few ones because I don't want it to be super regular. And then there are so many ways you can actually make this more effective, right? For example, you can just use a dodge, like there's a line dodge tool in Krita. So you can just line dodge it if you'd like. Be sparing though, because this shit looks so cheap sometimes, like you gotta be careful. It's a line dodge. Also, if you don't want to line dodge it, if dodge is scary, because I can understand if dodge is scary, dodge is very scary. You can toss in a bit of airbrush on top of an existing dodge. What is that? It's a line dodge tool. It's just a dodge that's very, very small. Like the settings have been adjusted so that the actual application area is really small. I use it for swords and stuff. I can show you. Let me switch my view here. Oh. It's this in Krita. It's called Muse's Beamlight. It's a very interesting brush. It has a shape dynamic to it so that it becomes smaller and smaller the more you draw with it. Rather than the more you press down, it gets smaller, so I can have it be nice and flat like that. That kind of thing. It only affects light part thing? Kinda, maybe. What a dodge tool does is it just increases the value overall of what's there, so that's what a dodge does. So it's just a line dodge thing. I think it's super useful because this is a regular dodge. So it's basically the same exact thing, except a bit stronger. So if I can do this one with regular dodge, just sample the value and dodge it up. So when you want to blow things out, I mean, you just use things that blow it out, right? So just use whatever makes sense to use there. Anyway, let's fix the lighting real quick, because it's important to do so. So let's get our Asara head. Yeah, Asara's right here. So now we evaluate what's going to be front facing, because front facing is going to be darkest, right? So that's simple ideas. That was going automatically. You just have good hand-eye coordination. Oh yeah, no, I was just drawing that in manually. So all these front facings go into darkness, right? In this current situation, and that's fine. It's a scary thing, man. It's a scary thing to put the entire face into darkness, but you can't do it, right? Sometimes it helps your piece to do so. So I want to have a very strong separation in my lights and darks. So again, the more I blow this out, the more room I have to wiggle with. But remember, you have to have separation for the piece to have clarity. So you can go a few ways. I'm doing a middle solution here. I'm bringing the lights up and bringing the darks down. But if you want to have this kind of value in the shadows, then this light's got to be like this. It's got to be like that. It's got to be super, super bright. See, now when I put this in, now it looks like shadow, right? That's just how it works. Because when you look at a painting, why you think something is a shadow is because it's significantly or very clearly away from the lights, right? So when you kind of play the game half and half, it kind of ruins your overall picture because suddenly you lose that clarity. So it's orange because light through the hair makes it red. Sure, I'm just interpreting the local value of the hair to be like a warm orange, right? Because I saw the orange over here, I was like, yeah, well, fuck it, let's put an orange there. But it doesn't really matter to me all that much. It could be basically anything. So you see that? So the reason that this doesn't look like a shadow, but this does, is because of that difference. You see, that separation of light and dark is intensely important. It's so important. So I kind of like the way this looks to a certain extent, so we can keep it as is, but remember that there's so many ways of approaching this, but you have to have that separation. If you don't have separation, it doesn't work. That's the idea. Also, don't be afraid of having a little bit of these context details. Like that. Kind of adds a bit more volume or a bit more information to the hair. Okay, so let's justify a few things because some things don't make all that much sense in the drawing. Because, for example, this plane of the I mean, it makes some sense. But the thing is, this front-facing plane is going to be the most darkest. The right-facing plane is not going to be the most darkest, right? Because if you say the light's completely on the back, then it's not going to be the case. But let's just say the lighting's like from somewhat in the back, then it kind of makes some sense for the planes to be the way they are. So I'll just say the planes are like this, right? So it's if I draw a coordinate system here. So the light right now is coming, it's not coming this way. It's coming that way. Well, it's coming this way. So I can draw the that direction. Okay, so if it's gonna be like that, then this is gonna be, if any of this hits direct light, that's also gonna get blown up, you have to understand, right? If any of that hits direct light, that's also gonna get blown up because there's no such thing as like illuminated light or whatever. It's gonna hit direct light if it's coming from the right. Like this plane is gonna be in the same level as this plane over here. It's gonna be the same level as this plane over here. So you can almost justifiably put all of this into the light and just be happy with your life. Praise the Lord, I didn't merge that. So you can do this, you know. And I know this looks fucking horrible right now. You gotta trust me, it does make sense. Now, it's important to realize that skin is kind of matte, right? So it's not gonna go fully blown out, but it's gonna get blown out. It's gonna get quite blown out. Not just blown out, but blown out towards the temperature of my light source. So I don't exactly know what temperature you've considered for this piece, for the light source. I'm just gonna say it's a warm, but it'll get blown out like this. And put in the light because the hair should be casting some shadow. Fair enough, yeah. So we can just take it one step at a time, right? We're not gonna go crazy with it. We just say there's an additive shadow right there. So yeah, we can just add that in. Right? And if you want to be super realism man with this, you can just take that value and just paint it down. That's what I would do. But obviously that's a dumb idea. Let's desaturate that a bit more. Jesus, what is that brush? So it's going to be additive right there. It's an additive shadow. And that's over here. It's just going to be a regular cast shadow, so it's going to be lighter than that. Also going to be orange because of the reflected light, or reflected light rather. See that? So this is the same cast shadow, but this is it with additive with the existing form shadow of the face, and here it is just regular cast shadow, which is why this is going to be darker, because this is cast plus regular shadow, this is just cast. And that's how I justify it. So of course, we can just soften this up. It's going to be quite hard right over there. You can slightly soften it up though, because it is skin. Can't go crazy now. It's a very soft little defocusing brush. Right? And there's also going to be cast shadow from the hair on top of the neck right over there, so there's going to be some change in the topography. I'm not going to care too much about that right now. It's going to be something like this maybe. Goes up and then goes side. Like that. It's a bunch that I want to say about the proportion of the face, but since this is a lighting condition, we're fine. Okay, let's finally add that little thing that we're talking about. So again, we have a cast shadow on the hair. So cast shadow, cast shadow, cast shadow. Like this. So like that. What was the original direction? That seems about appropriate. So this is going to give us context. So it's going like that. So again, simply using a straight brush and using the cast shadow color from the light. Just do this much. Right? And then there's an additive right here. Is there going to be an additive right there? I don't think there's actually going to be an additive, because you're not going to be able to see that shadow over here. It's going to be just here. And then just take that cast shadow value, because it is a cast. Let's extend that based on the plane of the face. In that way, right? So that got cast like that, and then goes there. That cast like that, then goes here. And for my nibs, hell yeah, dude. And there's an add to shadow that goes in here. It follows the form of the face. light because you're considering some ambient secondary. Yeah, basically that. But oftentimes, if you already have a cast shadow in the face like this, like if you have a good additive cast shadow over here, then it's fine to just extend what you already have. That'll look fine as well. Just like that. Because we can just treat all of this as just one solid shape, right? Because from the perspective of the face over here, I mean, it's just seeing one shape that looks like this. Just seeing that from over here, so we can just leave it as is. It'll read just fine. So just take the existing shadows. Let's not overcomplicate it. We'll just paint the direct shadow value. I'm going a little bit softer, but it's fine. Also, it's really well worth knowing how to map things out over here, because I think if you haven't watched Charlie's sub perk video for last week, that's really good to kind of figure out exactly how this cast shadow is going to work, because there's a lot of geometry that's going to help you. Like a lot of geometrical things you can do over here that's really going to help you with this study. With this painting, rather. That's how I would do it, though. As a quick example. Hopefully, I think that's an improvement. And of course, this is a foam shadow right here. I don't know, it's still cast. It's not a cast shadow. It's not a foam shadow. It's a cast shadow. But it's not going to be as hard. You gotta still manage it, right? You can't leave all your cast shadows as selection hard. So I tend to soften them up a little bit. I hope that helps. Also, don't forget your occlusions in your hair. There are going to be a few of those. Gonna add a bunch of character, a bunch of life to the hair. And throw in those deep dark occlusions. Too much work, probably all lean. Yeah, it's a very ambitious piece. Like, I can do it now only because I know what I know, but it's not something I could have maybe done like a month ago. Like, it's a difficult piece. I will save this for you. The light's much better. Okay. Take a quick little break, and when we come back, let's do the study. Alright, we are back. I saw a study from Conk in the Discord. You're welcome to post that in the study post section, by the way. That's where it should go. But great job on the study. Very, very good work. I definitely am a big fan of that. Very, very neatly done. Should add you to the group. Nice. I wonder if you're looking in here. How's it going, Mochi? Charlie's new schedule is not like 3 AM for me. For me as well, right? It is a shame. Glow, you doing the study with me? Can't wait. Good to have you in here, Mochi. We just finished this little dog study in, it's a 45-minute painting right there. I hope you like it. We're gonna be drawing a self-portrait right after this. I hope this is actually my pen, because I have two identical pens. Did you just bite my joke? Did you make that joke before? With this techno-heavily metal music in the background? Don't know what you're talking about. Alright, let's get started with this one. In a 1, a 2, a 3, and we go. 45 minutes on the clock. First thing that we do is we get that overall idea of the background sort of set and rolling. First thing I want to do over here is just mildly correct this little cropping for it to be a little bit more sensible for the piece. And then we start painting some really abstract blocks of values. Take a nice little square brush for this. So I can start painting. The first thing that kind of comes to mind is that beautiful, beautiful yellowish green right there. So strong. I bring that to yellowish green. This is the color that I think in my head. So I paint a little bit of it here, a bit of it here, a bit of it here. And maybe a bit of it here as well. Lovely. Okay. Beyond that, what else is what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing on my mind? Let's see that bit of a neutral, sort of warmish reddish, sort of oak right there. Can paint a little bit of that in. Remember, I'm just going for an evocation right here. This is the last one. Are you doing the wild one later? I plan to do the wild one, yes. I want to do that as well. Because I want to put more still lives into practice. I've been doing a bunch of ground plane studies, so I want to put a bit of that perspective information into pieces. So of course stuff that I do off stream. Kind of soften this background up. This neon green is biting, I know. It's going to cut a bit of that bite out with a few shadows in here. But yeah, I do indeed plan on doing that one. We can soften this off with a bit of that, that's fine. Lovely giant rock in the foreground. Again, I don't care too much about the lighting of this too much right now. Am I the only one getting green screen flickering? You shouldn't be. I'm looking at my OBS right now. Get this a nice dark foreground idea here. Gonna neutralize that color just like this. Keep it nice and simple at the very beginning. I see that light towards the left hand side, just a matter of just picking what I think is important. Try refreshing the stream, would you? Maybe that helps. It's a basic notion of what we see. Get a bit of that darkness in here. I'll burn that in a second. We can continue on here. I see a few values here that are blown out to the light. We'll somewhat reduce them. We can keep most of them the way they are. There is a certain amount of perspective on this drawing, but I'm probably going to ignore the vast majority of it because it's so close up, it's not going to matter too much. I'll pick that same little light value that I just put up there, and I'll introduce a little bit of this darkness, a little bit of the saturation from down here. I'll do so with a bit of texture. Can maybe pull it to more of an orange as well. Gonna get a little bit of that on there. Easy enough. Pull this value into the white. The white? Jesus, that's my Indian side coming out. Put a little bit of this light in here. And of course I want to get a bit of this foliage into more of the yellows. It's going to break up that intense amount of green. Just vary through it a little bit more. Okay, there is going to be an orange right there in the background. There's going to be a few hints of orangish red down here and towards the right. Again, the overall idea is just to capture a very, very abstract look of that background, just so that my piece sits on something that makes some measure of sense. That's the whole idea behind doing this. So technically just the piece where it sits is sufficient to kind of address, because I just want the values to be okay for the comparison. And beyond that, it's just a good test to see how well you can abstract. I'll do a little bit of burning in there because I want to get that harsh kind of orangish value in a few of these areas. Like that, for example. Right there. And a few areas like this. Just get a nice little saturation. My piece itself doesn't have all that much saturation on it, so it kind of makes sense to make up for that by putting it in the background right now. And for the last little change that we put in the background, let's add a little bit of some shape to the stone. So adding a front-facing surface, or a top-facing surface rather. It's going to do plenty and more for us. So select the value right there. That looks appropriate. That looks appropriate. That's a bit too green, I'm sorry. That looks decent. I can just paint in here and make it look like it's the front face. Just make sure these are nice and coordinated. And just desaturate afterwards, and I get my rock that needs to go there. The initial value seems a bit harsher, a bit more greener, so we can fix that real quick. I need to get this airbrush somewhere that I can see it more easily. I'm gonna slightly adjust that value. There's so much darkness on there, to be honest. I might even need to add an additional value right there just to capture it. But it's 5 minutes, so it's about time that I start working on my actual piece. So bring this up here, let's do some additional cropping, trim that selection, do some painting down here, and we'll do one last burn pass. Gotta be careful, that's a rock, so we can't put too much softness right there. And I'm somewhat satisfied with that drawing. We can address the background a bit later. But right now we zoom all the way out, and now it's time to capture a bit of this essential idea of the chimp. What's a burn pass? Just taking the burn tool and just adjusting the darknesses accordingly. So let's capture this overall gesture really quickly. The overall gesture is what now? There are some boundary conditions, but let's just start with the height that I want. I want to have maybe this much height. And then some gesture lines here. So the gesture is this. Goes this way and goes that way. And I can actually do an extremely similar construction to what I would do for a person here. And like I said, I might just do that. So the person construction would be like this. Go like that. So I'll just treat this like a gesture study almost. Back goes down here. Those big little legs coming from right over there. So I might be able to get the block in much quicker. Like I said, if you know human anatomy, this might go a bit easier for you. Like that. Get my hands right there. Somewhat coordinated. I figure out where my shoulder is. It's right over there. And slowly but surely I arrive at some conclusions here. Also can use the tools right here. Chimps are just people wearing realistic chimp masks. Not quite, there are some differences, like the penis size for apes is generally significantly smaller than people, for whatever reason, so we got them beat in that respect. But everything else they're better at us. They're way better at us, better than us at everything else. So we got that their length on them, but they got everything else. All things considered, I think I prefer to be chimp strong. That just might be me though. Get that leg in there. Can I ask what time the stream is going to end? Most likely in a couple of hours from now. So I do this via a bit of construction of the silhouette. So it's a lot more. This is a lot more informative to me than just blocking it out with measurement. But of course, there's so many ways of arriving. And this little area right there. Let's just make sure that we have this whole thing set up the way that I need it to be. So the elbow starts right there. That's one of the hands. The other elbow goes right there. Same line right there. It's good to keep this under control while I work. That hand goes right over there and about this angle. It gets the top of the palm, and the chin rests on top right there, giving me the face. Yeah, so my assertion was correct. Like if you know a bit of human anatomy, this goes way quicker. Okay, let's actually do a little bit on the face because I have no idea what a chimp's face even looks like. I haven't drawn too many of these, so I'm not entirely sure. Well, we can just do this. We can do this part with measurement, right? We can just do this with separation of light and dark. So about 2/3 of that is in light, 1/3 of that is in shadow. So I start right there. I get a separation like this, and almost tangential to this line gives me the mouth, and I can just see the eyes are somewhere around there, and be happy. So zoom out to get some initial ideas on things that might be going wrong right now. So that needs to be a little bit more closer. Needs to be a bit more straighter. So some minor issues because I didn't completely sight size this. As much as I want to stay, I must go shopping. Don't worry about it. It's always going to be a VOD at the end of the stream. And hopefully, if I do my job properly, it's also going to be a YouTube video. But more on that later. I'm a little blocking. Let's continue. Really? Cool. Yeah, so I've been asked to look into trying to upload these streams to YouTube, which I think is a fine idea. So I'm going to be trying to do that. I've been asked before about this, but that was about making YouTube videos, which I'm not going to do at all, because I just do not have the time to do something like that. But the upload is certainly possible. Okay, let's first of all neutralize this canvas a bit more. Well, we'll neutralize the background of this chimp over here. So we'll add this as something like a warmish gray like that. I just want a separation, you know? I just want a separation of the light and the dark. Rather, I want a separation of my subject and my background. So I will choose to have cooler shadows and warmer lights, because that's exactly what's on the canvas right now. So cooler shadows, let's bring it more towards those reds maybe. We can start painting it just like this, almost to the purples perhaps. That looks appropriate. Okay. Let's start cutting out some shapes. 10 minutes into the drawing, great time to start painting. So have these nice, we can always push this more towards the blue even. I believe that's perfectly fair. Nice large thick shapes right now. There, there. Towards the side, bringing out the elbow. I'll ignore that hand for the time being. You don't really need it. Those are going to be the darkest areas of my drawing. Would be awesome. You have a ton of useful information that is lost. It's deleted. I mean, most of my information is derivative, so I'm not too unhappy about that. But yeah, I think it's a good repository at least. It's a good practice to keep. So when I put these lights in, I can immediately check to see whether I have issues with my proportions. Indeed, I do think that my hand needs to go a bit more outward. This one I'm happy with. This one not so much. Also, you might make some money. Hell no, the YouTube monetization is it's completely garbage. But hey, maybe. I'm always in the market to make more money. Man's gotta eat, right? I can push this to more of a gray. That's perfectly fine. That'll be my second darkest dark. This is a very, very traditional breakdown of value. Maybe push it a bit darker. It's like this. Put that darkness in the face. It's really simple at the beginning of the piece. This can also be used in a few more places. This little value can be used over here, near the shoulder. Well, something's better than nothing. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So I'm not going to be opposed to the idea. If YouTube comes to me and says, "Hey, Indian abroad, right? We like your content. We want to give you a shit ton of money." I'm going to be like, "No, my standards." I'll be like, "Fuck yes. Here's my address, here's my social security, here's my credit card. Give me all that money." People grant on principles too much. It's like, shit, I need to eat, dude. Okay, get these little light values in here. Simple enough. I'm gonna get that initial separation of light and dark. So we can do this a little bit with straight painting, a little bit with just regular paint strokes. Again, the burden is how well can you simplify. The burden is not really on catching anything accurately. It's really how well can you simplify. Because we're not going for picture perfect accuracy of color or whatnot. We do care about getting a lot of this structure in the appropriate fashion. I got that form in there remarkably quickly, which is awesome. It's going to afford me the luxury of just relaxing a bit while I put in these little values here that's going to describe my light and shadow. Also, now that I know the form and I know the light direction, I can actually do a lot of this just by memory, because I know what these forms look like. which is also a fun thing. I should consider that strongly because sometimes I can easily correct my strokes while I paint. If I just keep that in mind. Some strong occlusions in there. I'll put that in a second. I'll put that in just a second. Some blue on the face, and of course we have this lovely bright value. It's my lightest light. Again, push that to more of a warm. Have that nice little difference right there. We have this lightest light on the face. I'm painting this with a square brush right now, just to mix things up. We used a shit ton of texture brush in the last one. And I'll use a little bit of this lighter brush right now. Already we get that typical humanoid kind of chimpish shape starting to take form. 15 minutes in. There's some reflected lights in the drawing. Start to put a little bit of those in. I'm missing my grand occlusion in the picture. We'll put that in a second. We don't need to put it right now, but it's gonna feature in here somewhere. This is a very dark occlusion line that's going into both some of the occlusions and also some of the some of the core shadows. So we can put that in a second. But just paint this with some squares. Seems to do us just fine. The third one is fun. Are you doing that right now? Yeah, it's a still life. That orange in there. So it's easy to kind of lose track right now, so I can't go crazy with this application. And it's evoking my reference quite strongly, which is good, but it's not perfect, these strokes, so I gotta be careful. Can't go crazy now. Again, reuse. Whenever you can, reuse. It's the name of the game. Some orange back there. And of course we can throw in some airbrush in the middle, get some of those foam shadows that we're missing. Gonna add an additional volume before we continue, because there's gonna be a lot of this kind of sorted by the occlusions. It's gonna give me a ton of shape, a ton of structure. So I can throw in some of these ideas right now while I paint. Some of these foam shadows, just so I don't have such harsh edges. So since I painted most of this with just a square brush, I don't have that variance right now. Again, always reuse when possible. Makes the entire piece work better. I see Angie here with a post in the Discord. Check that out at the end of the study. Can't wait to see it. I think she used the chimp reference. Pinning in there. A bit of this orange here towards the bottom side. 17 minutes in. And of course we have the dark value down here. As a cast shadow. Was that for a walk? Go back and post it now. Were you doing it while you were working? While you're walking, you were just walking into people with your iPad out? Watch where you're going, I'm doing a study here. Jesus. Get this darkness in here. Nice evocative shapes. Yes, totally. Well, I expect nothing less from you, Angevir. You take this seriously. Ain't nobody gonna get in the way of a girl in her studies. This light value appropriately selected. That's without the lines right there. We can continue right here. Very evocative. I love shit that looks like this. I'm a big fan of it. I mean, it's not what I'm going for particularly, but like it's just so expressive. I'm just a big fan of it. Because I didn't eyeball any of this, like I just constructed it based on anatomy, so it's kind of fun. I'm gonna have to make some changes towards the sides of it because I wanted to actually match the reference somewhat, but it was really fun to do. Night Silas is streaming art. You get this hand right there. Okay, let's put in some of these occlusions that I'm missing, right? So it's gonna give you a bunch of context of things that I've drawn. Look how jacked these things are, Jesus Christ. Even lift. Get some darkness right there. It's gonna be warm darkness, right? Let's throw in a bit more warmness here. can actually blow some of this darkness out as well, now that I'm here. Nice. So we have that strong read, strong separation. That's what we're after. 90 minutes into the drawing. Let's continue on. So I want these little lines at the periphery of my shapes to really give me context on what I'm drawing, because again, I haven't outlined anything, so it's up to these kind of values to really give me my form. So again, don't oversimplify, just take what I already have and use it. It's my hand right there. Oh, where's my square tool? There it is. Right about there, there's going to be a cast shadow from the face on top of the arm right there. I'm actually going to hit this with a bit of a color balance because I want to cool down those shadows a bit more. Let's do that real quickly. Add a bit more cyan there. Oh shit. What is happening? Oh wait, I know what to do. Hey, more blue shadows. Easy clap. Okay, continuing on. That's some grade A level cheating right there, holy crap. Get some of the edge quality sorted out. I want there to be a read between the hair and the background, yet I'm not able to get the read because of how crazy this background is. So let me just go here and slightly adjust some of the things that I've done. You can get blurred a bit more. And I want to paint in a dark behind this. So I want to get that light read on the chimp. There you go, now I can actually see the lights. Just make sure they actually posted it, they're actually placed somewhere that's sensible. I'll just put this anywhere. Like that. And also a bunch of warm in here, right? Again, reuse if possible, so I'll bring that warm down here, around the face. Looking absolutely King Rafiki right now. Throw in some intermediate highlights with this texture brush. Okay, there's some deep dark eye sockets here that should be addressed. Let's mix our brush up a little bit. Let's use this instead. We know all of this goes into shadow though. I'm gonna add that little change right there. This goes dark. A lovely, lovely capped kind of mouth there. So strange. Well, it's only strange because I'm not drawn chimps very often. Certainly does look cool though. Sand monkey? I think that is a... Isn't that a derogative term? Isn't that bannable? Just be a little bit careful about that. Sand? Sure. The end key is a little bit far away there, buddy. Okay, let's cool that down a bit more. Some of those cool tones of the face. Could also just very well just pass a gray in there, right? Because of the warm context. That makes B and P up all the time. And by the way, I was lurking. Well, good for you. Crack, and how's it going? Good to see you, dude. We painted this chimp, we painted this doggo in 45 minutes. This chimp's being painted in 45 as well. it's getting on there. I think I've painted a chimp in a very long time, so it's an interesting study. Having a bit of fun with it. My goodness, once I sat back down on my computer, my left shoulder started acting up again. I'm gonna slightly shift my position of my hand, a bit more comfortable. Look at them big old lips. Hell yeah. Get those nostrils out of the way. I have like a zero reference for chimp anatomy. This is actually really interesting. Look, especially with the eyes. Looks somewhat appropriate, but I think they're a bit more lower facing. I should look at an Aaron Blaze video on chimps. I'm sure he has a good one. But that's not what I wanted to do. Pull that down a bit more. They have that kind of drooping jowl idea. It's getting there. I think that looks decidedly chimp-like. Can't say I really dig this the square brush though for animals. I think it gives a cool little look, almost like my selection tool animals, but not quite as like interesting. I feel like could just be my application though. I'm not fully sold on it just yet, but I'm gonna keep doing it because it's fun. Internet cut out, how you doing? Doing well, thank you for asking. We're doing pretty okay over here. We're doing animal studies. We did this one. That's a picture. This one. That's a painting. That's our second one right there. Let's put in that car shadow as well, by the way. So we're drawing this chimp here, having a good old time. Look at him. He's just straight chilling. And cool this down. Let's just toss a gray in there to begin with. Is the gray sufficient? Not quite. A bit more warmness required. My cast shadow. Thank you, Kraken. Appreciate you, and feel free to jump in as well. As always, references available on the Discord. Need to bring this little rock here a bit sooner, or a bit closer to the left. Also bring that highlight a bit closer as well. Enjoying the bag emote right there. It's our Bonnie bag emote. Put those beautiful eyes in. If anything, we can always say we just did those, right? Just like that. The combination is the best. Angiver has this killer combination, which is just the bag and then the downward facing hand that goes boy. It's pretty fantastic. I'm gonna add more of a furrish kind of texture in here. I'm gonna furry him up. That's the one, it's so good. Holy shit. Ataku? Jesus Christ. Thank you for the raid, buddy. How you doing today? Welcome guys from Ataku stream. My name is Indiana Broad, aka James, and I am a study streamer. Always will be, always am. And what we do over here is we try and get better at digital painting, all things painting. And in that regard, we do studies every single day on the channel. If you want to jump in, participate with the study with us, you're more than welcome to grab that reference from the Discord. But Ataku, how's your stream? You have a good time? What are you working on? Show me. This was our first study of the day. We drew this this pupper. This study is 45 minutes, so we have about 15 left on this particular one. It's going pretty well, I think. Yeah, but shout out to Otaku. Streamer's good into art because video games. Video games? Dan's game. I'm glad you're having a good time. Sometimes you gotta relax, you know? I think I could take my own advice for that. I haven't played a video game in a while, but I used to be heavily addicted to them. There's gotta be something there, right? I kinda wanna play Warframe again, but like that game eats up my life, so it's maybe not the best idea. But my goodness do I love that game. It's such a good game. But thanks for stopping by, dude. I appreciate you. Let's play Warframe? I don't know, man. Like, I'm so unproductive when I play that game. Thank God Warframe doesn't work for some reason on my laptop. Yeah, that game's legit, like, it is so addicting. And I have so many, like, good frames right now. Like, I have such a pimped out Chroma. I stopped playing before Chroma Prime was released, so I don't have Chroma Prime, but I have a super pimped out Chroma that I use for Eidolon hunting. And that was just such a huge amount of fun. So I played the game like in 2 big bursts. The first time I finished everything in the main story and I got to like endgame Cetus, and then the second time I played through, I got all the way to Eidolon hunting. And hook you up? Ooh. Saturn OP. My Elite Sanctuary Onslaught farming character is Equinox. Equinox is just so stupidly sick. But yeah, Saturn was like weak as shit, and then they buffed her while I was playing, but I heard that she's really good right now. And I really want to play the new characters like Gauss and Grendel. They look so good. They look so fucking good. Gauss especially, with his super speediness. Like he's what Walt should have been. I'm an Octavia main. What is it with artists that are Octavia mains, man? I have a friend named Anna. She's from Ohio. She's a great artist as well. And she's also an Octavia main. She'll just log on to Warframe and then just try and like make cool something like Mandela chords. And she'll log off. She won't do a single instance. She just do a bunch of like chord making and that's it. It's so much fun. You dance around and make music. Yeah, and you can like crouch to stealth and you can jump to get like slow fall or whatever. Like it's pretty sick. Garuda for life? Yeah, I never played Garuda, dude, but she looks kind of cool with all those spikes. What I want to play is Wisp, because Wisp looks, you know, damn boy, she thick. But for real though, I think her design is awesome. Like the recent frames have been pretty fucking good. I feel like, as I keep reading up on it. It's really good, also super strong frame. It's about somebody to say hello, Solmir. How's it going, dude? Good to have you in here. Just pass on by, don't worry about it. We do appreciate your presence. I think I'm a Siren main because I'm a basic newbie. Siren used to be just so convolutedly rough back when I first played, so I first played maybe a couple of years ago. Like the mechanics were just so like unnecessarily complicated. But then when they remaked her, they made her kind of brainless. And they also buffed they buffed Nezha, I think her name was. And Nezha is just the best female Warframe, so that's kind of cool. My favorite at least. Did you see the new cinematic they made? Yeah, with the Dax soldier that is wearing the a crazy Dax soldier, and he pulls out a gun from a hole or something. That one. Nezha, best trap? No, Nezha's a girl. Girls can't be traps. They're just girls. Silly shrimp. Pull this to more of a red. Yeah, that game is fantastic. Really big fan of the community as well. And also the fact that it's so F2P, like if you know what you're doing, like if you are just completely no life and you farm corrupted mods or you farm arcanes, like it's so easy to get custom stuff because you can get a ton of plat from all of that stuff. Which I really like. I think the economy in that game is fantastic. Don't diss my boy Nezha. Yeah, Nezha's my favorite girl. Like the community is great. Very seldom met a toxic player. Good game, man. Good game. Maybe I will play it. But the fucking the grind frame is real, honestly. Like after a certain point, once you hit endgame, like I haven't done the new Lotus quests, so I mean I guess I could do that, but then even after that it just becomes a grind fest. Like I think all I was doing before I quit for the second time was I was farming that chromatic whatever it was called. Chromatic blade? Not chromatic blade, chromatic something. Like it's an incredibly rare drop from Grenier Butchers on one of the Uranus maps. And I was just farming that every single day when I woke up. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? And then I started painting again and I never played again. Equinox has a cool design. Yeah, Condition Overload, that's the one. Condition Overload, yeah. Play Warframe in waves, I play a lot and get bored and stop. Yeah, I've done that twice so far, Engineer. Who knows, maybe the next time we usually play together. We're gonna enjoy the new content. We will be Railjack buddies. On the right stuff to get plat and then buy. Yeah, that's how I got Equinox. Because Equinox farming is just garbage. Like killing, what's his name, Tile Rhaegar? Over and over again. The Lotus doesn't care about you. Not like I cared about the frogmen you killed. Like, okay, fucking Jesus Christ, calm down, Tile Rhaegar. It's not my fault. And he was right in the end, right? He was right. The Lotus doesn't care about us. Is this from the London Zoo? Me? Yeah. This reference could be, I'm not sure. I actually got Equinox in like 20 runs, super lucky. And Javier Art. That is just not okay. We're not friends anymore. Canvas was good. We're drawing chimps. Jump in. 36 minutes on the clock. Just about enough time for you to finish your study. Right on time. Get ranked. I bought Equinox. Yeah, I think everybody bought Equinox. My favorite frame to play was Ivara though, because I love stealth. Well, stealth frame is my favorite, even though stealth frame is kind of a joke. Because later on, when I was farming like Lua missions, for example, farming the Lua spy missions, I was just using Rhino because Rhino is busted for Lua spy missions. Because you just walk through all of the traps with the iron skin on. Would have, but haven't been to bed yet, and it's 2 PM. You gotta sleep, my dude. You gotta sleep more. Brought back such memories. I got like the first 7 parts like super quick, and then like maybe 10. Yeah, no kidding, right? And then again and again, same fucking cycle. It's so slow when the manic bombards and the manic whatever they're called, the ones that are gonna laugh in the dark and their eyes glow when they run. Those things. Like really annoying. Like of all the fights to farm, it's that one. That one's crappy. Cheers, Canvas. I appreciate you. "38 minutes done. Got a bit of that orange for the eyes. But the lore for Warframe is absolutely rock solid, by the way. I really like the lore. I think it's really cool. I love reading up on it. Like, even though I stopped playing a lot of games, I still like to keep track of the lore because I just think it's cool. Lotus doesn't care about us. Right now. The world of Warframe is super interesting. Yeah, like all the enemies or whatever, quote unquote, are human based basically. Like the Orkin, the Grenier, the Corpus, like they all have origins basically that come from Earth. Like Orkin are just super advanced people from Earth, and the Grenier are just clones basically. The Greniers are clones. Is that what makes them evil? Hearing that 500 times. Saying the best part of the story comes in the middle of the game. Yeah, War Within, right? I think that's probably my favorite, like, my favorite gaming moment ever was those two quests. Second Dream and War Within. Your brain just starts blocking stuff of all stuff that random, the damn Ordis piece of shit. One of my friend Hesso comes to stream every now and again. He used to play with me and he stopped playing the game because he couldn't stand Ordis. Like, I don't know if you could mute him or something, but he just hated the way he sounded. That was his justification. Maybe he just didn't want to play with me and he lied to me. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that, would you, Hesso? I know you're listening. I know you're out there somewhere. You can, I muted him about 20 minutes into playing. Have you guys seen that Mash.com video of 100 Days of Warframe? It is an incredible animation, dude. And it's like one of the truest things I've ever watched. It's fantastic. I'm gonna try these later today, get another piece I'm working on. Dude, don't worry about that. And I'm so excited to see it when you're done with it. It was promoted heavy. It's a really, really good video. Like, one of my favorite animations. It's one of those few games as well that I have no bitter feelings about. Like, I played League to death, basically. And I fucking hate League right now. Like, I despise the game. But I played Warframe and I stopped playing and I really hate the game. I just think I still think it's a great game. So I have good feelings about it. Me and Warframe, we split amicably. There's actually some amount of subsurface capturing on this chimp's face. I like it. I hate the League, even when I played League. I think everybody does. Like, what we look for when we play these kind of games is that little loop, right? Little I kill somebody else, I won a game kind of loop. It's a dangerous thing though. $42 we got 3 minutes left in the study. Player versus player games? Yeah, I guess. Maybe that's what made Warframe a little bit fun. To be honest, if you guys have never played Conclave, Conclave is garbage in Warframe. It's arguably the worst part of it. But like, nobody plays for Conclave, so it's fine. Got a little light on top of the lip. There's also darkness right below the lip. A little foam shadow right there. Keep that nice and soft. The light in the appropriate direction. Gotta reinforce that light source. Just airbrush through that a little bit, because I want to make sure that separation is good. And I know it's my own fault if I lose. Yeah, I guess having a happiness be dictated by other people is sort of not okay. A bit of occlusion in here. This is not a bad looking study. I kind of like how a lot of this has been done. I think some of the forms are somewhat like lacking a little bit, but then I love how expressive it is in certain areas. Looks really cool. That's a big thick square brush coming in there. Very cool. What's your favorite gaming experience, I wonder? When I think about gaming in general, like the only game I played very seriously was Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original. Not the current one. Like the original Battlefront 2. Like I had like a gaming clan and stuff. And we had like scrims and raids and shit like that. This was when I was like 13 or 14. The hand? I could do a bit on the hand, yeah, true. But I played that game so much. Like every single day after school, come back, put my bag down, get my books out, start playing that game, and go to bed. Like I never had like a serious like MMO to take up my time when I was younger. Halo Combat Evolved? That's not a bad choice, it's a really good game. Alien vs Predator 2010. I know that game. I played it a lot. That's when you play number 9, right? Or Specimen 9 or Specimen 7 or whatever, as the alien, and you play whatever his name was, like Scar or whatever, as the Predator. Is that the one? I think I remember it. I think it was kind of like that game Natural Selection. Anybody remember that game? That's an old reference right there, Natural Selection. I played that game a little bit myself. Natural Selection 2 as well was a pretty good game. I was known for my Predator Spear. Are you the shrimp? __ XXX with the Predator Spear? Holy shit. I've heard the stories. Oh, also his time's up by the way in the study, my bad. Me and my hubby played Dark Age of Camelot. I've heard about that game. I haven't played it personally. It does sound good though. Yeah, this was a really fun study. I dig the way that looks. That's awesome. Okay, let me just crop this and post. If you guys did the study with me, please post. That is our time. Really cool, man. I am a big fan of that. I still didn't enjoy this one, but I was entirely picking a brush that didn't work. You know, I thought that the square brush wasn't going to work myself. But then, I don't know, in conjunction with a bit of my smoothness later on in the piece, I think it worked just fine. God bless. That's actually really fun. I might use more square in the future. That's a very fun looking study. And also what really helped me is that my blocking was super quick for this, so I could actually make some decisions that I wouldn't have time for otherwise. Because I just, I constructed the body instead of just painting it, so like I'm missing some of the gesture, like the lean's not there. But like I got this down really quickly, so God bless. Yeah, post it in the Discord, dude. No problem. That's what it's there for. I don't tend to look at finished pictures that much, but I will check it out when I have time. My priority when I get on the Discord is always just the study room, see what people are doing there. Because that's kind of the point of the entire channel. What am I doing still painting? Jesus. Correct answer is cheating. He's a cheater. Get him. Okay, let's export this, put it in the Discord. This is gonna be chimp1. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Why not? This is study number 2 for today. Ooh, a lot of people jumped in. Oh, that's my pen falling out. Let's do a review. Post if you've done the study with us. But here we go. That's the last study of all of us, the little doggy. Chimp time. Number 1 from Angevir. Love that face. Super, super expressive. Lights as well, quite soft. I think I like the attention towards the car shadows. Quite nice. Was the idea to kind of somewhat soften the values a little bit lighter in certain areas? Was that an intentional decision? Because I can kind of get that to key it up a little bit more. I think the form reads perfectly fine, and I like that you've opted for that strong kind of core shadow look. I think that core shadow look, it blends really well to kind of apes in general. I think mine looks a little bit flatter because of the lack of strong core shadow. Maybe I neglected to put that in there. So that's what I'm going to take away from your piece. I like the orange saturation. It's cool. Nicely done. Very sweet. TMP with those strong strokes. Hell yeah. Looking really good. I think your facial proportions looks very, very chimpish. I think the overall size of the body kind of got a little bit away from you. I don't know if you did any resizing here, but the internal measurement for this reads a little bit smaller compared to the rest of the body. So do kind of keep that in the wraps, because with how large the body is compared to the head, it almost looks like a gorilla than a chimp. But the chimp has a lot more proportion. It almost looks like a small human. So that head should be a little bit more proportionate, I think. But overall, as always, your eye for shadow, your eye for value is just impeccable. So great job on that. Love that. This is so good. The interaction right here with a little blotch of light around, curving around the maw. That looks fantastic. Such a big fan of that. I'm so happy with it, the way that turned out. Really cool. XJ Pauly coming in here. Mr. XJ Pauly, responsible for the emotes. Yeah, I see what you're doing here with the texture brushes. What I would recommend doing is that think about the texture as a secondary thing, because realize that even though a lot of things have texture to them, you want to always search for things like these, for example, because like the strongest parts of your study are the areas that you kind of put just a flat brush in there. So kind of structure your process to kind of accommodate this a bit better. So kind of put these flat areas of value and see if you get the same read when you blur. And if you get the same read when you blur, when you defocus, then kind of affect the size of these kind of planes, just like you did right over here. The same thing across the entire study. So get the blocks of value in, and then the texture. Because if you put just the texture, A, it's going to be hard to control the value, because the texture will bleed through in areas like this, for example, so it'll be hard to control it. And then B, the shapes of the texture brushes are usually kind of hard to perceive, so it's going to be a bit more difficult to control in that respect as well. So try blocking it in first, and then apply the texture second. So two-stage process. It takes a bit longer, but much more easy to control. So consider this. John with the still life study. That's number 3 for today. I'm going to be doing that real soon. But not bad whatsoever. I know you had some fun with this. Looks very glossy. I'm a big fan of that. Hopefully you enjoyed the study. I'll give you some more feedback once I'm done with my own, but it seems pretty evocative. Let me just quickly look at the reference on my other screen. What are you missing? So this central idea over here, maybe we can talk about some sort of like fundamentals when it comes to rendering glass, let's say. So something that you can always check to see. Well, first of all, I think the value is a bit too, maybe not punching hard enough over here. It's a specular reflection, right? So it's gonna punch a bit harder. Well, to be entirely fair, you've done something that's kind of smart here, because your brightest value over here should be about approximately your brightest value over here, because it's reflecting just that. So that's actually there in the piece, which is kind of smart. I don't know if that's intentional, but it's good right there. But if it's going to be this dark, the light, the blown out highlight, then all of these values in the frame should be a lot darker as well. So do consider that. Also, don't be afraid of softening up these ideas over here. They're kind of soft right now, but don't be afraid to just straight up take a blur tool and then blurring all this up with a Gaussian blur, because this is a very, very soft transition in the drawing. And kind of manipulating your edges here are going to take this kind of work to the next level. So don't be afraid of just putting a little bit of edge in here. So just a bit of blur right there would be good. Here's my chimp. He's okay. Some of the proportions got a bit away from me, and it looks almost bald over here. I should have pushed that light a bit more stronger, as well as there's a lack of core shadow here, like Andrew did quite well. So there's some idea of a core shadow over here, but again, while I did like the kind of evocative square strokes, I feel like I'm losing a bit of form information here. Like the arm is fine, like the arms are okay, but the legs look so flat in comparison. It's almost like a real chimp is leaning against like a paper chimp's body right over there. That's what it looks like to me almost. So I would have liked to maybe get that in a bit better. And that doesn't take any more strokes. In fact, it almost takes less strokes to get that done properly. So I would have liked to maybe do that in my study. But overall not bad. Also, you're free to comment. And that's what we do. Let's check out Shrimp's work. Why'd you keep changing your name, Shrimp? No, not too bad so far, I think. It's going pretty okay. I like the pose, like the gesture. I don't know what's happening with the hand over there, but I'm sure you'll resolve them. I'm not quite sure. The read on the hand is a little bit iffy. It's my surname, Borkowski. So you're Russian European, something like that. This sounds okay. This sounds a little bit. I'm not fully convinced by that. But I like the posing. The gesture's good. The gesture's pretty solid. Polish? Cool. Bazari is also Polish. His name is Philippe. Okay, shall we the last study or should we call it? Gonna get some food together, but I had fun participating today. Take care. Yeah, thanks for doing both of us. Both the studies with this guy. Polly. That was very, very, very kind of you. What's the time right now? 21:39. If I end right now, I have time for my silhouettes later. Maybe I will end right now. Well, 2 is sufficient. I'm happy enough with 2. I had this little goodbye to post. I'll fix the hand? No problem. I will probably do this till live tomorrow morning when I wake up, because I actually want to get a really early bed tonight, because I've been sleeping at like 4 or 5 in the morning and waking up at like 8, and I'm so exhausted by the time I have to stream. So yeah, we can call it right here. Why not? Gotta get those mandatories out there, and my mandatory is always 2. Who should we show some love to? Let's raid Jen. Because we haven't gotten to raid Jen before. Jesus, oh my god, What's my... I don't even know what that is. Thanks for the stream, no problem, Glow. Appreciate you. Alright guys, thanks so much for painting along. Always fun to catch you every single day. Always fun to have you guys paint along with me, because I do these studies every day myself anyway, so it's always good to have some company. So really appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed the stream today. Hopefully you enjoyed some painting, got some takeaways from it. Go say hi to Jen, great creator, and make sure you follow her if you haven't already, and be kind to her as you have been kind to me. I will catch you tomorrow for some more studies, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. I'll update you on the Discord, but always open to questions and critiques and whatever on all the channels, on the Discord, on the Instagram, wherever you want to meet me. I will try to respond to you as best as I can. But until then, see you tomorrow and have a good night.